בחרמון נמס השלג בחצי הלילה, בחרמון זורם לו פלג בחצי הליל. אבא שם על הר השלג בחצי הלילה, שר שירים על נס בפלא עם כל ישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. בבקעת תמר פורח בחצי הלילה, הירח שם זורח בחצי הליל. שם אחי ודאי שומע בחצי הלילה את שירנו השמח כאן בישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. במדבר הולך החושך בחצי הלילה, שקט הס בארץ גושן בחצי הליל. לדודי עיני נחושת בחצי הלילה, וגם הוא חוגג כמו שכל בית ישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. ואני יושב בבית בחצי הלילה, עם נרות וגביע יין בחצי הליל, וכוכב מאיר עיניים בחצי הלילה, לי מוסר ברכת שמיים ולכל ישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. איזה ליל, האביב שוב צוהל.
Stop, Sabrina, brother, call, it's something of the call. Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. We are back, baby. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 939 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And we are indeed back, and it feels like it's been almost a year since we've been gone. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours. We can't cover all of the news that we missed, sadly, but we will be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And what a day to return, as massive news has been coming out as the Ukrainians were able to hit a massive Russian ammunition depot in the area of the town of Torbets within the Tver Oblast. The explosion was so large it could almost be described as a near nuclear explosion, with the fireball and the mushroom cloud visible from space. The ammunition depot has been completely destroyed, and it's supposed that 200 Russian soldiers garrisoning the ammunition depot may have been wounded and killed in the blast just within the past 24 hours alone. Not only that, but major news is coming out of the Middle East as well, as we are starting to hear that the Israeli armed forces are beginning to conduct offensive actions against Hezbollah forces within the area south of the Litani River within Lebanon, and are also conducting hostile actions against Hezbollah commanders in the capital city of Beirut as they appear to try and bring the Iranian proxy forces to heel on the very day we return. At the exact same time, inside of the area of Ukraine, we've been able to hear that strategic attacks have been made along bridge works in the Rostov-on-Don region, along with major encirclements happening on the southern end of the Rek and Sim, with Russian forces, the remaining brigade that has been embattled and beaten in this area, now retreating from the town of Veselo to the city of Klishkovo, after Ukrainian forces have been able to conduct a successful encirclement and threaten the Russian rear lines in this area with being cut off. The Russians are expected at this point to be facing a complete failure south of the Rek and Sim, although that will most likely take several more weeks. At the exact same time, inside of the remainder of the Donetsk Oblast, Ukrainian forces have been conducting incredibly significant offensive actions against Russian forces throughout the entirety of the area. And we have also seen that Russian forces within this area are starting to face depleted numbers and depleted equipment issues, very similar to other Russian forces throughout the entirety of Ukraine, and also other Russian forces that have been seen elsewhere around the world, including inside of the Middle East. We have also been able to get some major news as well from inside of the Ukrainian front lines, as the Ukrainian armed forces have been able to coalesce their forces into some specific key areas, for example, Kursk, and have been able to inflict incredibly high casualties and have continued to hold their defensive lines for the past 5 days. Not only that, we have been able to see that Ukrainian forces have also been inflicting very high casualties on Russian forces within most battlefields, and we have also been able to hear that apparently there is some more interesting things that have happened, not only in Ukraine, but around the world, that we'll be trying to recap that's happened over the past 5 days alone. But the past...
So in other words, we left the place, we went on vacation, and we've returned to the world on fire, basically. What's happened over the last 5 days?
Yeah, as soon as we leave, everything went mental. And not only that, many of y'all may realize they haven't been on air for like 5 days, and that's a first in the channel ever. We have never been off air for this long. The longest we've ever been off air was when I got the Wuhan Whirlybird last year, and that was around this very time, and we were off for about 3 to 4 days. We were gone for 5 straight days, and we ended up actually going on a pretty cool vacation. We'll tell you all about that way later on in the stream, because we have a lot of huge news to cover, but there is tons, I mean literal tons of things to tell y'all about this vacation. We took loads of pictures, we took a few little videos here and there, but it was a vacation for the books. The first one we've ever had in 4 years, and it was incredibly fun to have. But still, we have an insanely high amount of news to cover tonight, and we've got to make sure to get into it and start hammering this out. Otherwise, we're going to be here all night. Not that I'm complaining, I would love to be here all night because I've honestly missed running this stream for the past 5 days, but we have an insanely high amount of news to cover. And so, moving us on up, probably into the largest piece of news that has happened so far over the course of this entire month in the war, we are going to be moving up into the Tver region. The Tver region has been mentioned once in the war, in an actual very interesting note, as a matter of fact, as just north of the city of Tver and near to the town of Torzhak in Budovo is where Yevgeny Prigozhin's private jet was shot down by Russian air defense around this time last year. Around an entire year ago, Yevgeny Prigozhin died in these fields within the Tver Oblast, really cementing the end of the Wagner legacy and ensuring that the Wagner coup would never really rise the same way it did the first time. However, farther off inside the Tver region, near to the western side of the oblast and also very close to Belarus, is the larger Russian town of Toropets, which sits on a small little lake largely created by some dams in the area that are meant to help out with industrial purposes. Now, something that's interesting about the town of Toropets is that it is also a major army ammunition depot for the Russian Federation and the Russian armed forces. And it's right over here. It's actually as big as the town of Toropets itself, and you can actually see all of the major hardened ammunition storage sites that are here at this facility. You can also see the barracks that house the Russian soldiers, around the 200 or so that are here at all times permanently, and you can also see a large myriad of Russian ammunition storage houses that are spread throughout the facility to try and stop it from going into some sort of a critical explosion if it was ever hit by anything at all. Now, something interesting that a lot of people will note about this facility before we get into the major news that came out of this area is that it's not exactly hardened ammunition shelters like you would find in a Western country or here in the United States, where we largely keep our ammunition in almost a pretty thick subterranean bunker complex of a sort. They're fairly small, but usually spread out in a uniform distance that is meant to ensure if one of these ammunition facilities exploded, it wouldn't cause a chain reaction across the facility. The Russians don't have that kind of an ammunition storage. We've seen this many times before in the war, but they have literally just shacks. They have shacks that they build kind of ramparts around out of dirt, and they just pray and hope that nothing hits it, and if something does, and everything hits the fan, then they just hope that it doesn't spread to the rest of the facility. And boy, were they wrong. We got videos about 28 hours ago, so literally almost at the very cusp of this day, that showed that a Ukrainian drone ended up doing the unthinkable. It reached the ammunition depot at Toropets, it broke through the air defense wherever it was, if there even was any in this area, and it ended up slamming down in the middle of the facility and literally causing a near nuclear explosion. The ammunition chain reacted as soon as the one drone hit the facility, and the entire thing got nuked, pretty much. It's gone. Well, I'll show you all the satellite footage that we have from today here in a second, but the facility has literally disappeared off of the map. It's a charred piece of land where this facility was, but here is the first clip ever recorded of the near nuclear-sized explosion that came from this ammo depot. So here it is. My God.
Holy crap, man. It's like a mushroom cloud out there, like a nuke went off.
Yeah, it is. And what's crazy is that we think that it actually chain reacted almost instantaneously. So from what we know, this may or may not be bigger than the Beirut explosion from 2020, which was nearly this, well, it was nearly the size of the Mont Blanc explosion. And the Mont Blanc explosion, if y'all don't know, was another non-nuclear explosion that happened in 1917 that was the largest explosion in history until the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. This thing actually ranks up there in being one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in the world, and it was caused by a single Ukrainian drone.
Also, by the way, I see people saying it caused earthquakes, like a 2.8 magnitude. Is that confirmed, by the way?
That is confirmed. That's how big this was.
Jeez, man, that is crazy.
I mean, this was mental. And we have endless footage of this thing going up in flames and then exploding and burning afterwards. The explosion was even carrying on well into the next day, which is today. And you can see it right there. Now, it's died down a lot at this point, but you can still tell this is a severe explosion. This thing is huge.
Пока таких громких звуков, слава богу, нету. Так, слегка.
This thing, like, it's legitimately a mental explosion. Let me show you all the other clip that we have. This one was a lot closer in the morning hours of today, also showing us what the explosion was looking like from the nearby town of Toropets.
I think if I lived in the nearby town, I would get to the farthest away town at this point.
Yeah, it's like, I will be taking the train from there to anywhere else rather than here. Oh my lord!
Jeez.
Oh my, it's getting bigger! Dude, and this is like 16 hours after the initial almost nuclear looking explosion happened. It's still blowing up like this. Oh my god! By the way, they did say that the explosion was so strong it blew out windows and houses and also tore off the roofing on some houses for miles around. This was literally almost a nuclear explosion that happened at this facility. Oh my god!
Also, I see some people, including Miss Disa in the live chat, say they evacuated the town. That would make sense. That would make total sense after seeing this, because this is horrific.
This is the biggest explosion we've ever seen in the war, period. This one actually breaks the record.
And also, you said it was a drone that caused all this? Because I see some people claiming it might have been a storm shadow.
Some people are saying it's a storm shadow, but from what we've been able to collect here in the background, no one knows the exact weapon that hit the facility, but we're assuming that it was a drone. That's largely what it's going off of right now. It's probably a Yudi long-range drone, if we were able to get a good discernment of what it was, but it's still a bit of a mystery. But at the moment, we're going to largely be reporting it as a drone because that's the most practical weapon that could have been used in this kind of a situation, at least by the historical precedent laid out in the war. But if we do get different information, we will be going back and contradicting this, although at the moment it's highly unlikely, according to our information, it was a Storm Shadow missile.
Well, if it was just a drone, that's a good return on investment, because this was a lot of damage for one drone to cause.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, it blew up an entire, ammunition facility. Dude, it's still going. It's still going. Like, it's almost like a never-ending nuclear explosion over there just from raw ammo.
I wonder what was the cost of all that? Like, was it millions of US dollars, or how much do you think?
Hundreds of millions of US dollars, most likely, because they had an endless amount of ammo in this thing, man. I mean, I'll go and show you all the facility again and also show Matthew, because this thing is huge. It's actually one of the largest ammo facilities in Russia that was hit.
And that would translate to like what, trillions of rubles or something, some insane amount of rubles.
Dude, hundreds of billions of Zimbabwe dollars. Like it's like
Oh,
it's an endless amount of them. But let me show y'all the facility again. That's it. This entire thing with a dirt outline around it, which is actually a security perimeter, and this entire area down here, which you can see is as big as the town of Toropets. That's the ammunition facility that blew up. The entire thing went up.
wow, that's crazy. That explains why the explosion was so large, and that seems like it would be maybe hundreds of millions of U.S. dollars in their ammunition. That's stuff they can't afford to lose right now.
Absolutely not, especially in this kind of number and also within this region, which we'll get into the analysis a little bit more here in a second about what this will mean for the Russian Federation forces in other nearby regions. But we also have still a lot more news on this explosion. This is the facility as it existed, like y'all saw on Google Earth. Now I'm going to be showing y'all what it looks like now. That's what it looks like now. The thing is gone. Like, this thing literally got seared to a crisp. You can see that buildings have ceased to exist in those little dirt ramparts that I showed y'all earlier. They got vaporized. There's not even traces of wood around. The other hardened shelters that they had on the southern side of the facility also appeared to have taken severe damage as well. One of them actually turned into an entire crater that looks to be maybe 100 feet deep and about several hundred feet wide. Another one also did as well. A lot of the barracks appear to have sustained some moderate to heavy damage, depending on what kind of munitions landed on top of them. Other hardened shelters were destroyed and completely obliterated in place, but it was insane. This is what remains. Now, let me show you all this, because we actually know where that is in the facility. This is right down here. You can see all of the barracks buildings that existed. As you can see right here, they're all labeled 1 through 22. And this is where all the barracks were for the Russians, 1 through 22. Now, there's about 200 Russian soldiers that are permanently stationed at this facility, but we understand there's also a lot more as well that are stationed at the facility at different times. Not permanently, though, but the number can surge at times depending on the logistical demands required of this facility. But as you can see, every single one of these buildings got leveled. Every single Russian that was in this ammunition facility when it got hit probably ended up going up with the explosion as well. So we're assuming that an entire maybe half battalion or less of a Russian logistics unit that was operating this base also got wiped out in the blast as well. It was a huge...
And those guys wouldn't even know what hit them. That was so fast and such a large and hot explosion. I think they just didn't even know.
Dude, they woke up to the worst sunrise ever, man. They sat there and went, oh, blitz! It just went white. It's like, dude, it was...
Someone's messed the thermostat, bliat. They put the temperature on hot, bliat. Put them to the heat. Oh, dear. It's so hot.
Man, dude, it was a really hot day for them. And y'all can see, once again, as we go through the proof here, the barracks were completely destroyed. All of them. Not a single one survived. We can also see the buildings that existed in the northern side. We'll get y'all a more complete satellite picture here in a second. But every single building that has a red X over it are the ones that have been completely destroyed. Now, the one in yellow was partially destroyed, but once again, most of the ammo inside of it exploded, and it's really only some of the structural walls that remain, so it kind of counts that it was also completely destroyed as well. But moving on from that into our next bit of news, we also got to see a little bit of the damage to the depot as it was seen from satellite. Now, that's a lot of fires to be burning in the depot and in the surrounding areas, and it actually stretches pretty far away from the facility as well. In all sides, it goes out for about a mile or two in each direction, that fireballs are just appearing on the ground and engulfing entire areas. We also got to see the before and after of the explosion in grand view. So observe, this is the before, literally just from the day before. This is after. Do y'all notice a big difference how all of the buildings on the northern side of the facility are gone now? Like, they are all gone. Every single one of them. And also, all of the barracks down here are gone, and all of the hardened shelters are now seared to a crisp. Everything is gone. Like, every single little thing in the facility was destroyed. No joke.
Dang, that's crazy.
And now they're showing close-ups. legitimately insane. This kind of devastation and destruction has never been seen. We've never seen this kind of devastation from drone attacks at all, and we've never seen them end up being this effective. And this is really setting a new bar for the effectiveness that Ukrainian drone attacks are having inside of Russia. We were also able to see the massive explosion again, and someone was also measuring and geolocating exactly where this clip was made. And also, some of you all will realize that the bottom left picture down here is actually the one we used for the thumbnail. The thumbnail is an actual picture of the explosion when it first happened, when the first drone impacted the facility and started to cause the chain reaction that would eat up the remainder of the facility. But this entire explosion, from what we know, was caused by a singular drone successfully hitting the facility. There were about 100 drones involved in the attack, and later on we do understand that a larger number of them did end up hitting the facility. But the honest truth is, it was really the first drone that had to make it, because once the first building exploded that drone hit, the other buildings, which really had no protection at all for the ammunition inside, started to cause a chain reaction, and it literally blew up the entire facility within the span of hours, and then the explosions continued on for about a good day and a half. But we also got to see here where the point of view was of the picture and the direction that is approximated, which was actually on the northern side of the facility. You can actually see the southern side down here, and it appears that the first drone actually hit somewhere about right up here in one of these larger storage buildings that y'all can see within the northern central area of the compound. And that's where ground zero for this explosion really was. It was actually within this area, not down here near the hardened shelters. So interestingly enough, from this information, from the data that's gathered by this geolocation, we can kind of get the assumption that the explosion was so strong that it actually breached the hardened shelters further down the facility and ended up destroying them as well, along with the barracks in the resulting explosions that followed for about the next day and a half or so. So that was actually a very shocking thing to realize from the explosions. And finally, our last bit of news here was a clip from the facility. From the facility, just mind y'all, of one of the other drones, we believe this may have been one of the first drones, that ended up hitting the facility, and the Russians actually filmed it. Now, this is an interesting POV. This is the only one we know of that actually came from inside of the facility, but observe, just observe. It's an interesting clip in its own right. Oh!
Oh!
Ебать!
Ебать!
Нахуй! Это беспилотник был, я проверил, ебать!
Is that one dude crying?
Yeah, dude, that thing blew up and he immediately started bawling. He went, ah! He's just like, bro, you're at a base. Dude, he literally did the equivalent of, we're gonna die, like in Russian. Let's watch this clip again. Let's watch the end. Reminder, everyone, the facility is already blowing up at this point when this drone hits, so it's not like it's a shock that there's an attack going on, so just keep that in mind when we watch the reaction of these guys in the clip.
Ебать! Да ну нахуй! Это беспилотник был, я проверил.
He's crying, man. He was crying in the background, like, no lie. That soldier just turned into a complete wimp once something hit the building.
Dude, that one guy yelled, yeah, bot, in the most emotional way he could, dude. He needs to get into acting, dude, because he went, yeah, bot! Like, he was so scared.
You know another reason he could be crying?
Why?
He could have got pinged on his pager.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Oh, my
no.
balls!
Еще летят, походу, нет? Не, это беспилотник был. Не, это точнее истребитель был. Нахуй тебя, Леха, что ты нахуй, что там в толпе стоять? Слава богу, живой, ёбаный. О, ебать. Бля.
Okay, so now a lot of y'all are wondering what actually hit him, because it didn't sound like a normal drone. Listen to this. Now that's interesting, because a lot of people would swear by that sound that it's not a drone. But what's actually interesting about this is that it's the brand new Ukrainian jet power drones that they've started to use on the battlefield literally right before we left. So we didn't really get to cover these a lot, but the Ukrainians have unveiled a brand new jet power drone that looks very similar, actually, in design to a Shahed 136, but it's a lot smaller. It's more aerodynamic, if you can describe the shape of the airframe, and it travels at a much higher speed, making it more difficult for the limited Russian air defense available to be able to try and intercept it. So it really moves the interception rate from about 5% for the Russians down to about 2%, meaning that most of these jet power drones make their way in. So while many people would think often the sound of that noise that it is a cruise missile or a Storm Shadow, the reality is, from what we know, this was a Ukrainian jet power drone that hit this compound, this facility, at this part of the clip. So let me play this for y'all one more time, because I just think that the reactions of these people are comical, because they are in the middle of a base that is under attack. That's not a mystery at the point this video was made, yet they all acted shocked that they ended up watching a drone hit their facility. So here's the clip again.
Ебать! Да ну нахуй! Это беспилотник был, я проверил, ебать! Охуеть! Нахуй!
Wait, man, the guy who was wailing, you know, he went, ah! Dude, he started screaming. You could hear him. He was like yelling through the crying. Listen to him. He's like, bro, he's just back there going, oh.
It's like the stereotypical crying for mommy routine whenever something like this happens. It's like, who are these forces here? Like, are they the high-end, like, Russian forces per se, or are they like normal ones?
No, these are the logistics guys. They're not really supposed to be in the fighting, so, you know, when they get hit, they're like, what the hell is going on? You know, especially at this facility, because this one is so deep in Russia, at least in their mindset, it shouldn't even be able to be hit.
Okay, so he wasn't expecting nothing. He thought maybe it was like a vodka-fueled, like a comatose state or something like that. He thought maybe he was hallucinating.
Yeah, maybe, maybe so, dude. He's like, dude, what a hangover, man. And then he watches the drum blow up. He's like, oh, mommy, help me, please. But anyways, still, pretty wild clip to end this all on, and just kind of showing y'all a little bit of the chaos as it was unfolding in the base. Now, to give a little bit more analysis on the explosion, because it was fun to watch the explosion, it's great to see how the Russians reacted, but what kind of an impact does this actually have on the war in Ukraine? And it actually has a pretty significant one. There are only 12 other facilities in Western Russia that were this size that could provide ammunition to the Russian army that's fighting inside of Ukraine, or better yet, the Russian army that's currently fighting against the Ukrainians in Kursk. The fact of the matter is that the Russians are not going to be completely out of ammunition because of this attack. We don't want to overplay it like that, because that would be inaccurate on an information side of things. But what it has done, it's knocked out about 8% of all ammunition that is available to the Russian Federation within the western area of Russia. Now, that sounds kind of small. 7%, it doesn't sound that big. But when we're talking in military and supply figures, 7% is a watershed of supplies that just disappeared in hours. Now, let's put this into perspective. The Russians may be able to keep the war going for a certain amount of time, let's say 2 years, based on current ammunition consumption and production, before they start running into larger issues. Now, that's going off of the pre-explosion numbers of munitions. This number just got cut down by 7%, meaning that the Russians may not be able to stay in the war for an additional 2 or 3 months at this point because of the loss of this facility. That is the kind of impact, just on the large number scale, that this facility would have because of its explosion. The other thing that it also has is that it was one of the more locally based major ammunition depots near to the area around Kursk, and this means that the Russian forces in Kursk will have to try and draw a larger supply line to get the needed amount of munitions, and that also means that this will put a greater strain on the Russian logistical system, meaning that the Russians may have to end up prioritizing what units get munitions and what units do not get munitions, because the supply line just can't keep up with the demand, and also the distance they have to travel to be able to get this ammo. The Russians have a very large amount of ammunition still available, even after this explosion. The problem is, though, do they have the ability to gather up that ammunition and ship it to the front lines? Because you can have hundreds of thousands of tons of ammunition sitting around in ammunition depots, but if you have 3 supply trucks that can transfer those supplies to the front lines, and say the Kursk front requires 10 of those supply trucks per day to be able to keep running, there's no way that the Russian logistical system can keep up with that demand. You have plenty of ammunition to fulfill the demand, but you have no way to get it there. And that's kind of the major issue that we think that this ammunition depot explosion will be creating in the long term. Not just the loss of the munition, but the most difficult supply situation in this area seen so far. But moving on from that major news, we have also been able to hear of an interesting little fire going on inside of Moscow. This was actually in Moscow just a few hours ago. We don't have a lot of info about this fire at the moment, but it is a pretty sizable one. And that's the end of the clip, but still a pretty decent fire. Now, once again, we don't have a lot of info on it. We just know there's a fire in Moscow. But once we have more info, which probably will be coming out tomorrow, we're going to be circling back and recapping that fire and what happened and what it may actually mean from an analysis standpoint for the Russians in the war. But at the moment, we don't know enough, so we can only show you all the clip and kind of prep you all for the following information that will come in the next days or so. But moving on out of Moscow and on down into the area of Israel, we actually have some interesting news to cover down here. This is really actually kind of nice because we came back from a vacation. Many of y'all will know the Middle Eastern area kind of died down before we left, but as soon as we left, things started to kick off in the area. The Hezbollah forces inside of Southern Lebanon have actually been attacking a pretty decent bit within this area with, of course, their drones and also their small rockets. Now, unlike the Russians, the Israelis have largely been able to shoot these down. But this kind of begs the question, returning back up into Russia for a second, what do you think actually hit that Russian ammunition depot? Because while we know a lot about the Israeli attacks that I was just going into, we don't really know a lot yet about the exact details of what hit the facility. Now, of course, it's largely leaning towards drones, but we haven't gotten any hard and fast picture and video evidence beyond the sound of a jet engine entering the facility to say that it was drones, a storm shadow, a single Ukrainian drone, or just a swarm of them. We don't really have that kind of information. But Matthew, what are people saying and what are people thinking about this attack? Do they think it was a swarm of drones, a single drone? Do they think it was a storm shadow or something else entirely? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so on the topic of what hit that Russian ammo depot, causing the almost nuclear-style explosion, which rocked the whole place and destroyed all their ammunition, it looks like 48% said several Ukrainian drones, while 27% said a Storm Shadow missile, and 14% said maybe it was just a single Ukrainian drone. And on this one, I gotta say, I don't have the exact numbers, but I think the Storm Shadow might actually be out of range here, so it might not be able to actually hit that facility. I don't know that for a fact, though, so don't quote me on it, but I think that might be the case. So based on the damage we saw, I would probably say it was several Ukrainian drones, probably not just one of them, because even though I do believe the chain reaction theory probably is accurate, it probably spread from one building to another, I don't think a single drone could have caused that much damage. I think they'd probably need to hit several of those buildings to cause that chain reaction to really do what it did. So I'm with the 48%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm going to be with the 48% as well. It was probably a large number of Ukrainian drones. We have heard an official report from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense that about 100 drones were involved in the attack, and we do know that many of them did end up hitting the facility, and one of them hit quite significantly and caused the chain reaction we saw on film. So I would have to go with it is most likely, without a doubt, several Ukrainian drones. But once again, that information is not rock solid. It's pretty solid, not rock solid. So we do get contradiction to that information. We will circle back around and we will clarify that probably within the next day or two if we get that information by then. But moving on out of this area and back into the Middle East, we have heard some very interesting things about what's been happening down here. Many of y'all will know that Hamas is largely out of the game, down and out for the while, as the Israeli forces engaged and destroyed a large amount of their fighting abilities within the Gaza Strip a fairly good while ago. There is some intermittent or kind of sporadic fighting that still goes on in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, but most of that has ceased at this point. The Israelis largely won that fight. But The other fight that has not been won yet is the one that's going on in southern Lebanon at the moment, south of the Litani River, against Hezbollah forces that have continued to conduct hostile actions against the state of Israel over the past few days. Now, the Israelis have decided to take a very interesting move with this. I couldn't include any clips of this because we were kind of concerned that it may end up getting age restricted. But I will tell you what happened about a day or two ago. So what happened is that there was this very special event, very interesting event, that while negotiations were going on in between Israel and Lebanon, well, not really Lebanon, but more so the Hezbollah forces inside of Lebanon, although at this point they largely run the country, the Hezbollah forces tried to make some demands of the Israelis, which of course were unacceptable. The Israelis said, you don't have the balls, and then they blew up everyone's pagers, and then they literally didn't have the balls. What happened was that the Israelis in their intelligence forces ended up finding a way, and I haven't found an actual explanation as to why it happened, but they found a way to blow up everyone's pagers in Lebanon. Now, what's interesting about that, and a lot of people are going to be, kind of on the fence about, is it really okay to just blow up a communication system? It really is. No one is using pagers anymore. I mean, what the hell do y'all think we're living in, the 90s, and we're living in Compton trying to make a drug sale downtown? No, we're not. Most everyone uses iPhones. The only people that use pagers in Lebanon are Hezbollah, because Hezbollah found out a while ago that the Israelis were actually able to tap into their phones and were able to intercept their messages, pretty much figuring out exactly everything Hezbollah was going to be doing when they were doing it. They figured out that Israel could not do that with the pagers. So then everyone in Hezbollah started to issue pagers to each other, and they started to use the pagers instead to be able to communicate with each other around the country and effectively coordinate their proxy force in southern Lebanon. The Israelis knew this, and while they really couldn't intercept or break through the system, at least from what we publicly know, they were able to find a way to apparently feed a message or some sort of an input into the pager systems to cause them to explode while on the people. Now, dozens were killed, and thousands have been wounded from the pager explosions inside of Lebanon. And it has been a very interesting note. We cannot show any of the videos, though. I know that many people want to see the videos to actually know what that looked like. I've seen some of them. It wasn't that graphic, to be entirely honest, but knowing YouTube, they probably would say it's graphic, so we can't show it. But if you do want to see it, we do have some of that, I believe, posted on our Twitter page, which the link is in the description below. So if you want to go check that out, I can't show it here, but you can go and check it out over on our Twitter and kind of get an idea of what this looked like. Now, another interesting thing is that Hezbollah now has come out, and their leader, who is in Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, tell me that doesn't look like Hezbollah's running the country, but they came out today and they decided to make a little speech, and of course it was kind of the same rhetoric that's been said for about 40 years. Israel is an illegal state. It's a state filled with people that they don't like because they're Jewish and they want to kill everyone in their country, largely stuff along that line. It was kind of the same rhetoric. The Israelis, however, showed that they didn't like that kind of rhetoric, and they ended up flying over an Israeli fighter jet over the city of Beirut, several of them actually, ended up blasting out windows with sonic booms, and also ended up throwing out heat traps over the city as well to make sure that they knew they were there. This was a pretty ballsy move. Now, Hezbollah would try and have the balls to respond, but sadly, most of them lost those a few days ago. But here's the clip. And there it is. That is an Israeli F-15, or otherwise known as a Buzz.
And that jet flew over, like, right during the middle of Nasrallah's speech, wasn't it? Like, right as he was making it.
Yeah, literally in the middle of it, interrupting the whole thing.
Wow, that was crazy. That's got to be, like, intimidating to see that flying over in the middle of him trying to, like, rally the people against Israel. It's like they're sending a pretty clear message. They're not going to mess around.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. and then all the guys, the Hezbollah guys, looked up into the skies while in the hospitals after the pages blew, and they were like, man, if only I had the balls. Like, it's such a... Dude, the jokes are never going to stop coming around on that one, man. It's the perfect thing for the jokes. But moving on from that, we also got to see that just hours ago, the Israelis also started to conduct major airstrikes within southern Lebanon. We believe that this is a part of the offensive actions that the Israelis stated they were going to conduct right before we left on vacation. So here it is right here. And they're really starting to level some of these valleys.
Oh no, somebody's getting a page.
Oh no! Oh god!
صدا و تصاویری رو که دیدید ناشی از اصابت موشک‌های جنگنده‌های رژیم صهیونیستی به
And also, by the way, I saw someone in the live chat. It was Fish NATO 79 said they weren't regular pagers; they had explosives planted inside, and that is true. The story was actually that the pagers were intercepted at some point. They had small amounts of very high yield explosive placed inside the pager, and then they were triggered from a distance all at once. And then there was also not just pagers, but I believe some cell phones as well. And also there's fears that other devices might have been planted as well. So all the way around, like they're scared to use pretty much any electronic device at this point because they're worried the same thing might happen to that.
Interesting. I actually did not hear that side of the story because I never actually heard how they blew them up. I was like, there's no way to blow up a AA battery because that's what these things run off of, are just little batteries. They're not lithium ion batteries. They're literally just the normal AA batteries you grab from the store. So I was always wondering, how in the world do you get something like that to blow up? So apparently it was plastic explosives. So now we know. Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. And speaking of which, we can see that the Israelis are not using plastic explosives. They're using pyrodex and other kinds of really, pretty volatile explosives. And then finally, in the last little thing here, we got a picture of a mushroom cloud rising over southern Lebanon as the Israelis conducted further airstrikes. We also got to see a little bit of additional information, also showing the absolute scale of the airstrikes that were occurring in the area. This is just generally within the southern area of Lebanon that these pictures were made, but once again, the Israelis are dropping the kitchen sink about the 2,000-pound bombs and everything larger than that. The Israelis never settle for less. You can always expect them to drop a near Moab-sized bomb for every single airstrike, no matter big nor small. But still, wonderful to know that the Israelis are making sure to deal with the proxy forces as they are getting fairly out of hand in this area. We're going to be keeping an eye on the situation, considering that probably a decent amount of Hezbollah just got put out of action by injuries to their manhood. We're expecting that Hezbollah may actually be greatly depleted in manpower, at least in the short term until these people recover, so that may actually sway Hezbollah into not conducting any major offensive actions for quite some time, while many of them try and get back their courage and the balls to be able to do something about it. Although many of them may not ever get that back, many of them may be, as the vet would call it, neutered. Moving on from that and out of Lebanon and on back up into Russia, we have been hearing some interesting information up here. But before we get to that, because I'm raring to get to the news so much, I keep on just flying right over our questions. And we have asked y'all a very interesting question tonight. Hezbollah says Israel's sabotage of pagers was a declaration of war. Unlike them firing rockets into northern Israel and killing a whole bunch of kids in a football field, that wasn't a declaration of war, but apparently blowing up their balls is a declaration of war. And a lot of people are wondering who will make the first move. And a lot of people are saying that Israel will move on at Lebanon first before the Hezbollah forces can respond. Some people are saying that Hezbollah will attack Israel instead, kicking things off. Some people are saying that nothing will happen, and some are unsure and undecided. But there's been a lot of talk about how this is going to end up going down. And a lot of people have ended up putting in their input, and a lot of people are really leaning towards one direction, like the band. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so after we saw the pagers get buzzed and go off and absolutely neuter, like the enforcer said, pretty much the entire Hezbollah force, they're scared to use pretty much any electronic at this point. So they said it was a declaration of war, but who's going to make the first move? Is it going to be Hezbollah or is it going to be Israel? And it looks like 64% said Israel will be the first to move on Lebanon to take out the Hezbollah forces, while 15% said Hezbollah will attack Israel first, and 12% said nothing will happen. And on this one, I gotta say that when it comes to people saying that declarations of war are taking place or war is going to be inevitable in the Middle East, it's really hard to predict that. So even though this is quite a big deal, because now Hezbollah is scared to use even the buzzers in their building to get into their buildings, to buzz into the door, they're scared to use anything, including cell phones. So they're living in a state of fear for once. Israel's kind of flipped the tables on that one, and now Hezbollah is living in terror. I would say that honestly, I think that maybe Israel might move on Lebanon first because Hezbollah is really not in a position to attack anyone right now. They are armed and they can launch attacks, but a large attack I think will require more coordination from their allies, such as Iran and also the other groups, such as Hamas, to be able to launch an appropriate attack on Israel to actually make a difference. So I think Israel's going to move first. So I'm with the 65%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm going to have to be with the 65% as well. The Israelis are going to move first simply because, and I got to do it again, I'm going to beat this into the ground. They got the balls to do it. Hezbollah doesn't really have that anymore, but in all honesty, getting past the jokes, Israel will be the one to put themselves in a good position. Now, going off of a real standpoint here, a decent amount of the Hezbollah forces in southern Lebanon, really around Lebanon, have ended up being taken out of action due to injuries. Now, some of these injuries range in between being severe and being minor, so some of these forces will be reintegrated back into action here very soon. So this is a very temporary sort of a drawback on manpower, but a significant one. We're assuming it's around 20 to 15%. So the Hezbollah forces, considering that they just lost about 10 to 15%, really 15 to 20% of their usable manpower that could be used in combat, they're probably going to decide to hold off for a while and try and work on a defensive stance instead of an offensive one, considering that they just lost 15 to 20% of their manpower and they didn't even get engaged in action at this point. This means that the Israelis, at least within the short-term window of the next few weeks, would be in the position to be able to conduct an offensive against Hezbollah forces. And if they wanted to, they would be the ones to do it. They're in the position to do it. A decent amount of Hezbollah is down and out right now, so they could certainly start to march in tomorrow and try and wipe out all of the Hezbollah forces south of the Litani. Also, on top of that, from what we know, the Iranians are having a little bit more of a difficult time supplying the Hezbollah forces because the Israelis are conducting pretty ambitious airstrikes really throughout the entirety of the country, including areas even as far north as Hermel and Tripoli, trying to make sure that they knock out Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps ammunition depots and sites that are supplying the Hezbollah forces further south. With that in mind as well, it's going to be pretty difficult for Hezbollah to be able to conduct an offensive. So the initiative, or really the ball, is in Israel's court at this moment. So we're going to be waiting to see if anything does happen. Once again, this is the Middle East, so while we're seeing a lot of offensive actions happening at the moment, we could see that nothing ends up coming out of this in the long run, but of course only time will tell how that actually ends up going. So we'll be waiting to see, but so far Habibi has no balls, bless their hearts. But moving on out of that area and on up back into Ukraine, we have a really interesting bit of news up here, actually around the Rostov-on-Don area within the Kursk Oblast, where Russian forces are actually getting encircled at the moment, and many other places as well. But before we get into that, I gotta say, tonight has been one hell of a return to the show. I've got to thank everyone who's been here so far. It's been crazy. We've been gone for 5 days, and we actually were a little scared that when we came back, no one would be here. Like, that was actually a bit of a concern of ours, but we wanted to still try and recharge so that way we could come back and give this thing our all, our best. And I feel like tonight, hopefully, we have been giving it our 110%. We literally got off the plane this morning back into Birmingham, so we were literally kind of in transit back home up until just hours before the show. But I gotta say, it has been one hell of a return. At the peak tonight, so far, there was 11.25 thousand people here. That is a crazy amount of people to be back on the stream. And I gotta say, I gotta thank everyone so much for really sitting it out, hanging out and waiting for 5 whole days. I did not know that the Lee Spring Army was truly that dedicated to the cause. I knew that the Lee Spring Army was very dedicated and diehard to the channel, but I didn't know that literally every single person would come back when we came back as well. And I got to say that that's absolutely incredible. Put an LSA in the chat if you're happy to see that, because I'm happy to see that, and I'm happy to be here running this show tonight. Now, I'm
happy to see it too. I got to say, it felt like I said, it was only 5 days or so, but it felt like it was almost a year. Like, I don't know why vacations always feel like that. It was fun. Don't get me wrong, but for some reason it felt very long in a good way. But when we come back, it's like it feels like everything's changed. Like, and it kind of did. Like, the last 5 days have been crazy in the news. But it's really good to see that everybody popped right back into the stream, and it's like we never left. It's really good to see.
I never left. but yeah, it's crazy. It's literally like we didn't leave, and we had a hell of a trip. Now, we won't go into this too much right now, but to tell y'all what we did kind of in a summary, we got on a plane in Birmingham, flew all the way to Dallas. Then from Dallas, we flew all the way to Los Angeles, or Los Angeles, whatever you want to call it. It's Los Angeles. But we flew into Los Angeles at LAX. We got off the plane here. We ended up going to Hollywood. We ended up getting scared. So then we went to Santa Monica, and then we thought it was really nice. And then we went down to downtown LA. Saw a couple of people shooting up, but not with guns. And then we got on a train in Los Angeles Union Station on platform 10, called the Coast Starlight, which I think it was train 14. And that train took us all the way from Los Angeles Union Station right there through California, on the coast, like through the Santa Barbara area, Vandenberg and San Luis Obispo, all the way up to San Jose and Oakland, right up here, and then around the bay and across the river into Sacramento, and then from Sacramento all the way up through the rest of California. We went past the Shasta Mountain, and then we entered Oregon, and we went through the area around, let's see here, Klamath Falls. We then traveled on up from the train into the area of Eugene, Corvallis, Salem, and Portland, and then the train took us all the way to Seattle. We got off the train, spent a night in a hotel, woke up the next day, got on a plane from Seattle all the way back to Dallas. The plane landed. We ended up staying in Dallas overnight, and then the next day, which was today, we got on a plane in the morning from Dallas to Birmingham, got off the plane, drove back to the house, sat down at the computer, and immediately started working back on the show and also on everything else on the channel. It was literally the planes, trains, and automobiles kind of a trip. We literally took all three. We ended up taking the car in some places, the train in others, and the plane to get some other places. But it was one hell of a trip, and a very interesting one, because we got to see literally the entire West Coast from top to bottom through the train. And we also got to see a whole bunch of other stuff on the way. Now, we will talk
a crazy 5 days, like, isn't it? A crazy 5 days, like all these flights, trains, and everything like that. First time we've ever used Uber, by the way, as well, which was interesting on another front. But also, I see some folks talking about, did you not go to Pike Place Market? We didn't sadly get to go there. We got to walk somewhere close to it, but we didn't get to walk all the way because we were literally only had maybe 2 or 3 hours in the morning to check stuff out in Seattle, and then we had to hop on a plane and come down to Dallas to catch that flight back to Birmingham. So also don't worry, folks. We do have videos and also pictures of this. We'll show it at the question segment, and also I might make a short video as well to show y'all the progression of what we did along the way, which would be pretty cool to see.
Oh,
but all
cool,
the way around,
yeah.
crazy trip, man. A wild trip all the way around. It was very hectic, but very fun.
It was so fun. And we will tell you all a lot about it. We actually have already dogpiled all of the pictures and videos that we thought were really cool into the Discord DM. So we'll be showing y'all that later on during the question segment, because I know so many of y'all were like, show us what you did. And a lot of y'all were asking about that. And I was like, of course, we're going to show y'all what we did. And Word Guy said, did you get that boiga? No. Sadly, we didn't get an In-N-Out burger. I hated it because there was one literally right down the street from where we were, and the line was so long, you had to wait an hour to get a burger. And so we ended up skipping on that, and we ended up getting a Wahlburger, which I never knew that the actor, was it Mark Wahlberg, had a burger store, but he does, and they're actually pretty good. I was actually shocked by that. But anyways,
Mark Wahlberger?
Yeah, Mark Wahlberger. Yeah, Mark Wahlberger, yeah. But yeah, it was really shocking, actually. I was really blown away with that. But anyways, with that in mind, we have to make sure to get to a couple of questions, because some of y'all may actually ask us some questions where we can get into a little bit more detail right now. So, Matthew, what kind of questions do we have?
All right, so jumping into our first question segment of the night, we have a very generous $100 donation from Joseph Andronaco, who's a long-time channel legend. And thank you very much, Joseph, for throwing in the largest super chat of the night. And we appreciate that very much. And he says, a daughter, this is in Joseph's words, by the way. He said, daughter and her worthless boyfriend is leaving. So now I have extra money. And welcome back, and take one from the chat.
Hey, the worthless boyfriend is leaving. Like I say, thank you so much for the support, Joseph Andronaco. And this is a night worth celebrating right here. We came back. The spineless carpetbagger is leaving, or whatever the hell he is. I don't know. But still, it's a great day, and it's wonderful to hear. And I got to say, wonderful to know. Thank you so much for the support. And you have extra money, and thank you for supporting the channel right when we returned. It's a great homecoming tonight, and I'm very happy to know that you're here tonight on such a good night, and we're here too. Also, thank you so much for saying welcome back. It was one hell of a trip. It was a really fun one. And I just got to say, I can't wait to tell you all about it. I want to make sure, though, that we get through all of the news before we get into it, because I don't want a lot of the people who are here for news to be, like, really dragged down with hearing about our trip, because most everyone is here for the news, and we want to make sure to respect people's time and get them the news so that way they can hear what was going on. But I still thank you massively for welcoming us back. I've got to say, the trip was very eye-opening, very interesting experience in every single way. And also, I got to say, Matthew, in my opinion, may be a little bit different on this, but I am a believer in Amtrak now. I'll tell you all why in a little bit. Matthew's got a little bit of a different story about the train, but I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great experience. That was the first time I ever rode a train long distance overnight, and it was really cool. It was actually incredibly fun, more fun than I thought it would be. It actually far exceeded my expectations for what I thought that would be. So that was incredibly cool. But I will be telling you all a lot about that here in a little bit. But still, thank you so much once again. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so the question from the chat, sponsored by Joseph Andronaco, goes to Fav Chuck, who says, do you have confirmation that the North Korean missiles were stored at the site that was blown up in Russia?
Good question, Chuck. We don't know. Well, like, a lot of people have been trying to track down the elusive North Korean missiles and figure out where they are, what facility they're in, and when they've blown up. But from what we know, we don't really know where the North Korean missiles have ended up, and we've seen a decent amount of ammunition dumps get hit, and someone is always claiming out there somewhere that that was, in fact, the North Korean missiles that got blown up. We don't really know, and a lot of those missiles may have ended up getting spread out amongst multiple facilities, so the statement could either be completely untrue for every facility but one, and that facility may have not been hit yet, or it may have been true for every single facility so far, since those North Korean missiles could possibly have been spread out amongst every single ammunition depot inside of this area of Russia. So at the moment, we're not entirely sure, and we're still trying to get a lot more information, but usually that information ends up getting lost to time and also getting lost to the kind of fog of war that we have inside of Russia. The Russians don't like to publish massive failures like a major ammunition depot exploding, so that means that any additional information about the kind of ammo that was lost or anything else like that is largely open to conjecture. No one will ever really know the answer beyond the inner circle in the Russian military, and also on top of that, it will probably not be completely known at all unless a Russian conscript took a picture of some rubble and we saw clear indicators that a fragment of one of the missiles was of North Korean origin. But at the moment, we don't have that. So there's a possibility that they could have been in that facility. It's one of the largest ones in the area, but we can't really say that 100% and say, yep, that's it. Those were the North Korean missiles. Because, once again, we don't have the hardcore proof, the picture or video evidence, or an official government stated needed to be able to know that they were there. So with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, really quickly, I saw Melanie 16040 say, why this stopover in Texas? There are no direct flights from Birmingham, Alabama to anywhere else. So if you want to go anywhere else in America, you have to fly from Birmingham to Atlanta, to Chicago, or to Dallas to be able to get anywhere else in America. So that's why we had to end up going to Dallas to get to LA and also to get back to Birmingham from Seattle, is because neither of those had nonstop flights to Birmingham. Just in case.
And also, I think they were asking, like, why, like, stay a night in Dallas? We actually stayed a night there last night. The honest reason was it was honestly cheaper to do that, because if you took the flight the same day, like, for example, coming back from Seattle down to Dallas, and then like an hour later hopping on a flight to go to Birmingham, I think it was like a few $100s more or something to do that versus staying in the hotel, which is actually cheaper to stay in the hotel. So that was the actual, like, honest reason we did that, because I would have rather just come back yesterday, but we just did it the other way for cost reasons.
Also, we did it the other way to actually give you all an honest answer, because Matthew's kind of skirting around it. We are legitimate, like not to say this like we're fear mongers or anything. We legitimately do not like flying on Boeings, specifically Boeing 737s. So we worked the entire schedule to where we were flying only on Airbus A319s and A321s. Those were the only things we flew the entire time. We never got on a Boeing, because, once again, the Boeing 737 MAX never really had the issues fixed. They've kind of been fixed, but from what we know, there's still some underlying issues that could still pop up at any point, and we don't want to be the ones that end up getting killed on a max and then having an air disasters episode made about us. So that's kind of why we ended up doing that, is because not only was it kind of the only way we could get back to Birmingham, it was also the only way we could get back to Birmingham on an Airbus and not a Boeing. So that's also why the stopover was made in Dallas.
I wasn't going to say nothing about that. I'm not trying to get knocked off by Boeing. But no, I specifically did. I went and looked at the aircraft before I booked the tickets. And I was like, I'm not flying on any Boeings out there. I'm picking Airbuses. So it was an A319 from Birmingham to Dallas, and then an A321 to LAX, and then back from Seattle. So it was all Airbuses the whole way, because I'm not stepping foot on a Boeing after what's happened with those planes recently.
And I also, Matthew, I did not tell you this, Matthew. The train actually passed by the Boeing manufacturing facility here in let's see, I think it was down in Everett, if I remember correctly. Somewhere something, where the hell was it? I gotta go find this thing, man. Like, is this it? Here we go. Yep, this is it, I think. Yeah, this is it. Wait a minute, hang on, let me double check. Boeing Military Delivery Center. I think this is the place. I think this is actually it. But let me double check. Let me double and triple check. Wait a minute. Hang on. You know what? Let me just go pull up the Boeing Everett factory in Everett, Washington. Okay, so we were not here, but the train did pass by a massive facility down here south of Seattle that had a whole bunch of Boeing stuff on the side. We saw it when we were coming in. I was like, oh my god, look! It's the freaking Boeing facility. And I don't think you saw it, Matthew, because I think you were in the other side of the sleeper car. But it was really cool. It was like they had all the planes out there. Some of them were unpainted. Like, they were still with a primer and everything. It was really, really neat. But yeah, we did get to see it. Now, I love the United States of America. Huge patriot, especially after our trip out west. It was really cool all the way. And we didn't actually run into any questionable people. Like, everyone's really nice and really sincere around the country. But the thing with Boeing is that they are running into a lot of problems, generally because of bad management. And I don't really want to end up dying because of bad management. That's kind of the thing. So that's why we ended up picking Airbuses instead of Boeings, is because I'll fly a Boeing, but the company that's manufacturing the planes has to be properly managed and also producing a safe aircraft. They've kind of lost my voucher for their public safety, or really their safety for anyone flying on their aircraft, at least temporarily. They'll eventually get it back, in my opinion, once they improve their management, but at the moment, that hasn't come around yet. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that live chat. Well, also Melanie's question as well about why there was a stopover in Dallas. But still, a big thanks to you once again for the support, Joseph Andronako, and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who helped to make this thing possible. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now, and we wouldn't have been able to be on that vacation for several days. So a massive thanks to you once again. And thank you so much for giving us the good news about what's going on in your life. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our second one is going to go to Al P, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Al, for that very generous support as well. He said, brought to you by Al's Roofing and Repair in Michigan, LOL. And glad to have you boys back, and LSA all the way. And it's good to hear from you, Al, as well. And also, thank you for sponsoring the show once again. I appreciate that, and we appreciate it. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the massive support, LP, and also giving another shout out to Al's Roofing and Repair in Michigan. If you're in Michigan and you need roofing repair done, make sure to check out Al's Roofing and Repair. Once again, big thanks to Al's Roofing and Repair for sponsoring this part of this night's stream. But also, thank you for so much for saying that you're glad we're back. We are so glad to be back. I can't tell y'all enough how much we're glad to be back. I love being back. I think the vacation was great, but I'll be honest with y'all, I was fiending to get back to running the show. I love doing it, and the truth is that while we were getting a little bit tired before the vacation happened, when you love what you do, There is no such thing as working a day in your life, and that's an age-old statement. Everyone's been saying that forever. And after a while, I know that it's true. I've never worked a day in my life running this channel. I absolutely love doing this. I love getting to talk to all of y'all. I love to get to tell y'all the news, to get to joke around with y'all, and everything in between, and I really missed that over the few days we were on the vacation. Now, I love the vacation, but still, I was absolutely raring to get back and start running this show again. And so, a huge thanks to you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. And of course, LSA all the way. And long live the Lee Spring Army. And the Lee Spring Army will never die. Oh, hey, by the way, I forgot to mention, many of y'all may have realized that our intro was a little bit new tonight, wasn't it? And we had a new little song in there. Now, the reason why that intro is special is because we're back. It will return back to the normal intro tomorrow, so kind of don't get used to the one we had tonight. It was really good, but we will not be introducing that one full-time for a little bit, and I'll tell you all why. The Armed Forces medley that y'all heard is actually something that's been in the works behind the scenes in this channel that y'all heard a little bit about a month ago, and it finally is getting towards an actual realized concept. I've been working with a composer in the background who's actually worked in the past with Disney Pixar, and they produce all kinds of orchestral tracks for many different movies that Disney Pixar has made. I ended up reaching out to them, and we ended up starting to work on a composition that will be very specific to this channel, which is our very own rendition of an Armed Forces medley. So for about 3 weeks now, this composer has been working on that in the background, and just 2 days ago, while we were still on vacation, he sent me the roughest of roughest drafts of this Armed Forces medley, and that was the one that y'all heard tonight. It is going to be put in front of a live orchestra, the same live orchestra that made the soundtrack for the movie Rambo, the movie Lionheart, the movie Die Hard, a lot of the movies that y'all grew up and knew. This specific orchestra also orchestrated and played those songs for those specific movies. Not in a concert hall. They literally made the soundtracks for the movies. So we are going to be working with them as well after the composition is completed and finalized, which it's still being done right now. It will then be orchestrated, and then we will put that into the intro permanently. It'll be replacing the By Rockdar segment, but I have to say that I've been really, really impressed with the quality of this. The composer is doing an amazing job. That's why I wanted to let you all hear that tonight as a bit of a sneak peek, a kind of an idea of what it will sound like in the future. But it's incredibly cool. It's been so neat. And another thing that we're going to be doing, because this is, I will be honest with y'all, it has not been a light venture on the budgeting side of things at all. It was kind of a pet project of mine because I absolutely love music like that, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to get out a very proud and, in my opinion, patriotic rendition of the Armed Forces medley, one that I would be really proud of to say that this channel made and had. So we're going to probably, I can't say this for certain in the future, be selling digital copies of the song. Of course, you could just easily go and rip it out of the intro if you wanted to and get it that way. But if you want to fund and support a future music projects, you could buy a digital copy of this thing on the LSA merch store in the future, once it's finally completed and we actually have the orchestrated version. If it gets close to breaking even, or it breaks even, I'm probably going to go and start making this a common thing where I work with the composer in the background to make different renditions of songs, maybe even completely new songs built from the ground up for the LSA, and then we'll be putting those out, of course, on the channel or for sale as a digital copy. And as long as they keep breaking even, I'm not really looking to make money off of it, just looking to make sure that we break even on these things, and maybe just a little bit short of breaking even. I'll keep on pumping these things out, like just putting out all kinds of stuff. We'll put out singles on every single song for the branches of the Armed Forces. We'll probably put out other songs as well, probably a LSA version of the Star Spangled Banner, a whole bunch of stuff like that, because it will be incredibly cool. I just think it's going to be really, really neat to do something like that. So I'm just letting y'all know that up front. I'm really excited about it, and I hope that y'all really like that tonight, because it's been in the making a lot in the background. It took a lot of work to even get it to this point, and we still have a little bit more to go. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, LP. I hope that it's an interesting little nugget of information to get from tonight's stream. And thank you once again for the support. And also a huge shout out once again to Al's Roofing and Repair in Michigan. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting into the remainder of our news.
All right, and this one's going to go to Andy L, who put in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Andy, also for that support. And it's good to see you once again as well. We passed through your hometown on the way back. Very cool. And sadly, we didn't have a chance to look around it, though, or otherwise we'd have had to have done that. Because, interestingly enough, when we stopped at the airport, the enforcer, who's the train fan, saw this sign that said it was like rail to Fort Worth or something. We were going to try to do it. We were going to try to do that, but sadly, we were so short on time. We had to wake up super early, like at 4 a.m. to get on the flight. We didn't have a chance to do that, but we might have to return back out there one day, maybe sometime later on in the future, and take a look at it. But anyways, Andy said, welcome home.
Hey, and thank you so much for the welcome home. And I'm happy to be home. I cannot tell y'all enough. I am so excited to be back here at home. And what better place to be than at home? You know what I mean? I'm very happy to be here. Love to be here. And you know, as far as I'm concerned, really happy with it. And also, I got to say, a huge thanks and a huge shout out to everyone who wanted us to go on vacation. It really took a lot for me to finally decide that we were going to go on vacation, because I would literally sit here and keep running the show to the point of insanity because of y'all. I mean, it's not that it's a burden or anything. It's that I care that much about the channel, and I care that much about all of y'all who are watching, that I would go to that kind of a link to keep the thing running. But I got to say, I got to give a huge thanks to everyone who wanted us to go, and I also got to say a huge thanks to everyone for waiting for us. I was really shocked with that tonight. We have gotten 50,000 views so far on the stream, and 11,250 people showed up at the peak of the stream tonight to watch. That's crazy to me. That's literally higher viewership than we were getting before we left. That's crazy. Like, that's legitimately insane. I did not expect that. And now knowing that, I got to thank everyone for that. I did not know that people in such large numbers. Now, I knew a lot of y'all were, but I didn't know that everyone was that dedicated to the channel and that dedicated to the LSA specifically, that y'all would wait an entire 5 days for us to return. Most channels would die over 5 days of not putting out anything, like a video or a stream or something along those lines. But somehow we can end up running now every single day, every single week, pretty much for 3.5, well, it's almost 3 years. Take a whole week off nearly and come back and everyone's still here. That actually blew me away. And I got to thank everyone so much for having a lot of faith in this channel, always supporting and helping to keep on running, because as long as we are able to have breath in our bodies and keep this channel running, we are always going to be here, and we're always going to be covering the news for every single one of y'all. A huge thanks to y'all once again. We owe y'all everything. We really do. And I've got to just say it again, I was completely blown away that everyone was here when we came back tonight, because I knew that we were going to be here. I did not know how many of y'all were going to be here, and everyone came back. And so a huge thanks to you once again. And also to add on to what Matthew was talking about with the train station, there are train stations at Dallas-Fort Worth, which is this international airport right here. It actually has 6 active runways, which is actually pretty big. It's 7 active runways. It's literally just one runway shy of Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson International Airport, which is the most busy airport in the world, I believe, if I remember the flight numbers correctly. But beyond that, one thing that is very interesting about this airport is that it's the hub of American Airlines. This is actually where American Airlines operates out of as their main hub and operating base. And not only that, they also have a pretty interesting little train station right here. This is a metro right here. And also another interesting thing, if I remember correctly, is that Tex Rail actually ends up running a rail service. Let me see. So that's actually riding on the train right there, but I want to find all the actual train. So give me a second. This is one of the little DART metro systems in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And they also have these, which are so freaking cool. They're like the American version of the DB Talent 2s that you would find in Germany. They're operated by TexRail, and they end up running from the airport all the way into Fort Worth. Also, there's another little train connection that they have outside of the international airport, right up here at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport North TexRail Station. Once again, run by TexRail, and they still kind of use like the DB Talent 2 style commuter trains in this area. But they take you, no joke, all the way from the airport and into downtown Fort Worth. Now, this isn't anything shocking for European viewers. Y'all have stuff like this all over the place, but here in America, this is actually incredibly shocking because it is a semblance of public transportation, which really doesn't exist in most places in America. And it will drop you off, and I didn't show Matthew this. Here is downtown Fort Worth, Matthew. You can see it right there. There's Fort Worth, and here's the train station you get dropped off at, Fort Worth Central Station. This is it, in the middle of downtown.
I wish we'd had a chance to get on there because even though I'm not the biggest train fan in the world, I did want to see Dallas and Fort Worth because I haven't had the chance to actually go downtown to either one of those cities, and I wanted to see it. But sadly, like the time crunch was real on this trip, so we didn't get to do it. But I would like to have taken that train.
I would have loved to. The tickets were actually really cheap too. Also, by the way, here's some of the older running locomotives that they have in the fleet. I believe this is like an F-59 or something like that. And let's see, they also had baby bullets back in the day. I don't know where those went. Also, some people are gonna be like, "Oh, big boy." I know, like I see it too, and I'm trying so hard not to click on it and go into like a huge rabbit hole on that. But you know what? I got to. There it is. There's the big boy. Everyone likes it. Heritage Fleet, really cool, really neat. It did come to Fort Worth back in 2021, apparently. Really, really cool stuff. I can't go on to it too much. There we go. There's the baby bullet. There we go. Right there. There it is, Matthew. Right there.
Interesting. I like that other train better, I think.
Yeah, honestly, I like the Talents, the Talent-looking trains that they have. I think they're cooler. And also, I think, if I remember correctly, now, someone correct me if I'm wrong, Talents are hybrids. They are either electric running or they can be diesel multiple units, which are pretty cool in their own right. I think these are set up to be diesel multiple units because I don't see any third rail or catenary, so still really cool. I think these things are wonderful looking, and also really cool that there is some kind of public transportation in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Just makes it easier to get around for folks that aren't from the city. But still, huge thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Andy L, because folks like you help us to make this thing possible, help us to keep this thing running, and if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to take the trip to be able to talk about Dallas and Dallas-Fort Worth's airport like we are right now. And so a big thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are now moving on into the rest of the news that we have tonight. And starting on down in Rostov-на-Doну, we got to see the Ukrainians hitting the Russian bridge. Let's go, baby!
Ебать,
It's smoking.
мост. Вот я прям взрыв слышал. Вот сейчас еду, блядь. Это реально что-то прилет какой-то был. Ёбана мать. Он что-то там прям полыхает жестко. А что там может полыхать? Что у нас там за мостом, блядь?
Oh, блядь, the bridge is on fire, блядь. We're gonna drive over the bridge, блядь. Let's see if we're gonna live, блядь.
Yeah, and he's just narrating. It's like, there's a fire right over there. It could collapse the entire bridge, and I might die. But oh well.
Пиздец.
Oh, look at that. Oh, Perry the Platypus. Some of y'all may know that. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. but beyond that. Also, Panama and Floyd, you are correct. Electromotive diesels are just the thing. Like, a lot of people don't know that. Like, I'm gonna let y'all know a big secret. Every single train in modern America is an electric train. It's just that some of them don't get electricity from overhead lines. They just have a giant motor sitting inside of them. It's a diesel motor, but its entire purpose is to just create electricity for the electric motors that are in the locomotive that actually make the thing move. So every single train in America is an electric train, technically. It's just a different way that they're getting the electricity. And then that's a very nice fire, blade. They are toasting, blade. And that's the end of the clip right there. Really nice to see. And moving on from that number on up into Kursk. Sorry, everyone. I had to take a Dramamine earlier today. It's still kind of working on me. And moving on into the area of Glishkova, we got to hear some very good news in this area. The Russians are losing Veselo. They are currently retreating up to the area of Glishkova. The Ukrainians actually started to encircle them. Right now, we're understanding that limited contact is being made at Sukhanovka, and the Ukrainians are currently on the road in between Veselo and Glishkova, meaning that the Russians may have their southern area south of the Rekasim split in two, which will be devastating for the Russians in this area and will result in the Ukrainians pretty much gaining complete control of the area. We can see that the Ukrainians did hit another bridge somewhere in this area. I wasn't able to figure out where Kursk was. I tried to geolocate it, could not find the town, so I just put it near the Reka Sem. But here goes our MiG-29, dropping its bomb, flipping over, and getting the hell out of there. And we can see them drop the bomb. Damn! And they got it. Oh my goodness, a perfect hit. And look at him walking out like a Chad. Like an absolute Chad. Bada boom, bada bing, baby. Very nice to see. Wonderful to know. Great job. Moving on from that, we also got to see a Christmas miracle, Matthew. Now, Christmas came early for the Russians. What do you think it is, Matthew? What do you think is the Christmas miracle in the Koronivo area?
Let's see. They got something else blown up, a depot?
Well, that would be a Christmas miracle, yes, but no. It was a Russian miracle vehicle, a Christmas vehicle, as a fact. Behold.
Whoa, what the hell? Wait a minute, what? Is that a Lada?
I don't know what it is, to be honest with you, but it's a miracle that this thing even runs.
That's not a miracle, that's an abomination. That's just, this is like a scrap heap thing. What the hell is up with the, like, I'm trying to figure out, is the door panel like the door panel that belongs on it? Because the front door
is gone. Like, the front door is gone.
This reminds me of that new, like, new post office van. You know, like with the really tall, like, ceiling and stuff, and the really short roof. Yeah, I don't know this is weird.
Dude, I don't know what the hell this thing is, but it's ugly. And also, it's got 2 electronic warfare jammers on top of it, and it already looks like one's busted, so I don't think it's working, but yeah, this thing is freaking hideous. Like, I've never seen anything like it before, and whoa, look at that spoiler. That thing is bad. Like, that thing is really bad off, man. But it's still a miracle the thing runs, I suppose. So we'll leave it at that. But moving on into the rest of the Kursk Oblast, we did get to see the Ukrainians taking more Russian prisoners.
Вот таких вот ребят. Срочники РФ. Всем по 19-20 лет. Которые что?
Не хотят войны.
Не хотят войны.
Мы хотим мирной, спокойной жизни.
Ладно, сколько убили людей, наших солдат?
Мы не вступали в контакт. Мы никого не убивали.
Ты толстый, сколько завалил пацанов Украины?
Сколько? За срочников.
И что, срочники не убивают? Нет. А позывные какие у кого?
Депозит. Деп. Том. Пуля.
А ты как?
Воробей.
Воробей? А чё воробей?
Из-за дрона.
Летаешь, как воробей?
Не как воробей.
Но ты уже прилетел, походу, да? На базе.
Right now, they're currently doing what's called a pop quiz, where they ask them questions they have to answer.
Нормальное отношение к тебе тут, да? Что Путину передашь?
Пламенный привет.
Насколько пламенный?
Как 120-ка.
Скажи, чтоб ты сдох, пес.
Точно.
Слава Украине!
Героям слава.
That's the end of that clip. But very interesting to see that the prisoners are getting younger these days. Looks like the conscripts are truly being thrown into the grinder. And we also got to see that apparently, meanwhile, elsewhere, it appears that the Russians were having a very warm day. Not because of the weather, it's because the Ukrainians dropped thermite on them. But check it out. Nonetheless, it was still warm.
Oh, look.
Nice thermite shower, Bliet.
I like how the thing takes off like one of those agriculture drones that like puts pesticides on the plants and stuff like that.
Yeah, it does, man. I never thought of it like that. But this thing really is just out there crop dusting, man.
Crop dusting for a bruising.
Bro, this thing is crop dusting so that way the Russians grow smaller.
Oof.
Oof. And there it went down into the trees, but still a warm day for the Russians. That's the end of that clip right there, but still an interesting note. And moving on from that, we also got to see the Ukrainians using some drones to clear out mines. Chad music ensues. There's the drone down there. It's clearing the way down the road. And in a second, it will not only clear the leaves off the road, it will clear the mines off the road. In a very effective fashion. Observe. It gets right on top of the mine, plants down on top of it, and then explodes, detonating the mines. It's a pretty effective system. And that's the end of the clip from the Griffin 501 unit, but still a really interesting way to clear the mines. We also got to see the 225th Separate Assault Battalion destroying a Russian Muron-M surveillance system in the area as well. Oh!
Yobliat.
This thing is
a surveillance camera.
Man, this thing is 50 grand. Bro, Mr. Beast could use one of these on his videos. I got a $50,000 camera, and we're going to see how many OSHA violations I can catch on film. but anyways, with that very interesting end of the clip right there. Really neat.
I got 10 miners to work in this gold mine.
Well, wait, what kind of miners? Like it's like what,
oh, like miners, you know, like the people with the pickaxes and stuff like that.
Oh, I thought it was the other one.
Oh no!
I was like,
oh no,
what the hell do you mean? I was like, what do you mean by this, man? But I don't know, man. I mean, some people say that that's you know, there's a questionability there with that, and like that may be found in reality either way. But moving on from that. And on out of this area and on down into our location unknowns, we do have some pretty interesting ones down here. We actually got to see the 66th Brigade in training. And also someone said, Mr. Beast is done, son. Is he? Because I haven't been checking on that a lot. Like I heard about the drama. And I don't know if it's actually had anything to really do with like actually impacting him. Has it impacted? Well, I mean, kind of, sort of. Actually, it has. Oh my god! Like he went down from like getting like 250 million views to like 100 million. That's not good. That's not good for a business model right there. Like business modeling and planning and everything. But anyways, here are the pictures of the 66th Brigade in training. We got to see right here a T-72 on the move. We got to see it right here as well. Pretty cool to see. We also got to see this M113. And also, Matthew, this guy back here with the GAT who's going to get anyone who gets by the M113. Like if you just end up popping up behind it, he greases you.
Man, he's going to grease him for sure. He looks like he means business.
Oh, dude. Cranks. Dude, that's actually a really nice crank right there.
That is pretty nice. I like that fold in stock.
Man, those things are pretty cool. I really like these. I just think they're neat. But moving on from that and that little bit of news, it's time for us to move on into our next little bit, where we also get to see a picture of the snipers from the 3rd Brigade in training as well. And, of course, it's largely just training. These guys, though, they all have G3s. That's new. I've never seen G3s being used in, like, a marksman role. But I guess they are now. And so, pretty cool. I don't know if these are good at long ranges. I have a G3, well, a PTR 91, which is the closest thing you can get into America to having a G3 without buying like a 20 grand gun. So I don't know if they're that good at that kind of a range. I mean, maybe with an optic they are, but maybe not. But anyways, moving on from that and into our next bit of location unknown news, we also got to see the Ladalov bullet. And they ended up bricking that thing up. Look at it.
How could they even fit those like all-terrain tires in those wheels? Like that doesn't even look like it should be on that vehicle.
Man, they just show up, man, and start changing out the tires as they play. Pip my ride, very nice. My wife, she like my ride, something like that.
They like to party. You gotta tell them no.
Man,
I saw someone say that in the live chat. I had to say it out loud. I had the urge to say it.
Man, Diddy ain't partying no more with no bail. Like it's just like Diddy ain't partying. Diddy getting to jail. But anyways, moving on from that, we did get to see a Yugoslavian 125mm tank round in Ukrainian service, showing that the Ukrainians are getting ammo. They're sourcing ammo from really anywhere and everywhere, and very interesting. It's interesting to note. Just something to note. But moving on from that, we also got to see the Russian casualty report over the past 24 hours as well. And
oh, no Bobcats. What the hell kind of welcome back is this? 0 Bobcats? That either means that the Ukrainians weren't able to hit any, or maybe the Russians are totally out. I think the second option is probably more likely at this point.
I mean, maybe so. But beyond that, the losses were pretty good. 1,130 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 13 APCs, 55 supply trucks, 14 mean battle tanks, 23 artillery pieces, 63 drones, 1 MLRS, And that was it. Pretty nice to see overall, and the Ukrainian defense, it's working. Moving on from that, and all over into the area of Kharkiv, we also get to see them destroying a Russian FPV drone. Check this out.
And also, by the way, I see some people finally noticing this. I actually do have a minor little bug, just a small bug. I was going to not mention that tonight, but sadly it's coming through in my voice a little bit. Hopefully I'll be over this in like a day or two or something like that. It's a real light one, nothing crazy. I'm just going to power through it.
He got it on the train. He woke up with
I
it.
did.
Yeah, on the train. Of all places. But very, very sad thing. But he's been a trooper, and I gotta respect him for it. But moving on from that and on over into the area around Vovchansk, we also get to see the day in the life of some Ukrainian National Guard forces that are operating some drones, please. And we see them moving on around, rolling on up.
Making it real cinematic, too. I like that.
Man, they got to make it cinematic. Man, did you see that, though, man? They got that 800 mAh looking battery up here.
That's 8,000 milliamp hours or something like that.
Bro, they got that 8,000 mAh looking battery on top of that thing. Man, they just need to add a looking in between the M and the A. Like an 8,000 M looking A. Like something like that. Bro, what did you get hit by? I got hit by that 8,000 M looking A. Like something like that. Oh, and they did. They got hit by it.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. You get no respect around here. He gets no respect.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here. Oh, man. But moving on from that and over to Tavashanka, we did get to see a Russian assault getting hammered. I mean, hammered with rusty hammers by the 3rd Brigade. Oh, first tank out. Rip, bozo. Here comes the next one. And y'all see, folks, I get recharged on a vacation. I come back and I'm able to spit out brand new jokes. It's like a miracle, really. Like, once you have a little room to think, you start really thinking.
We think outside the box. We left Alabama. We went outside of it. We literally got outside the box.
We literally did, and then we came back. Like, and then we returned. Honestly, we returned because going to California, it's kind of expensive. Like, a hamburger's like $30 out there. So you have to return. It's kind of like a short stay kind of a thing. But still, it was really
I literally
cool.
yelled out in pain and agony when I was in the little Uber car, and we went by the gas station, and I saw $8 a gallon for gas. I literally said, "Oh my God, it's $8 a gallon for gas!" I said, "Speed up, driver, to the airport, quick, quick!"
And
I was shocked by that. I was like, $8 for gas. I've never seen that anywhere in my life. That's wild.
And then the driver couldn't pay rent for his apartment because speeding up cost him an extra gallon of gas for like 25 miles, and that bankrupt. And he's like, oh, you know, something like that. But anyways, really, really quickly though, we're making a joke right here. I know many people are about to be offended by that for some reason. I don't know why. Just hang tight though, because while we are joking about California a little bit, there was actually a lot good to say about California as well. And we're going to be talking about all that here in the question segment, but I got to get us to the question segment. So moving on from that, we did get to see that a rare Merlin drone was actually taken down by the Ukrainians today. Look, it's a Merlin. It's like a magician. It's about to disappear. Look! Look! Blit! Oh, they missed it. Hang on.
Oh, bliat.
Bam! And they got it. And what do you know? What a hit. Really impressive. Really nice. And so moving on from that and further down and into Spatove, we also get to see a Stugna hitting a Russian vehicle. A vehicle. The base boosted launch. The base boosted hit. Man, that guy went, ooh, and I appreciate him for that. Ooh. He turned into a ghost, dude. He went, ooh, we hit him. But anyways, we also got to see an Mi-24 on the mission. Pick goes hard. Feel free to screenshot. Really cool. And moving on from that, we also get to see some fighting in Turretsk. Crazily enough, even with battles being that intense at sometimes, no one's making any ground or losing any ground in Turretsk. It's kind of a dead front at this point, at least in movement, but a very active one in the actual battles going on around the town. But moving on from that and into Novolik and Drivka, we also get to see a ground drone in action, a rare first on this channel. Alright, and everyone's eardrums are bleeding, a rare first on this channel. When you see the drone just rolling over the mines with class, and is about to go up and start greasing Russians. Oh! Oh! They try to take it out! How dare they? Well, now they gotta get mowed down by the machine gun on top of the drone. And there it goes, it's just going to work on the Russians. Russians look to fire another RPG at the drone. We can't tell if they hit it. It looks like they missed.
That seemed like a big ammo sink for the Russians to have to waste RPGs on like a little like robot like that.
Yeah, you know, it does, doesn't it? Also, someone said, my old ears heard fighting with Tourette's. Shit. Oh, man, I'm sorry. But anyways, moving on from that, we can see them hammering the Russian position. Oh, it looks like the drone may have been hit? Maybe? It looks like it finally got hit and knocked out by the Russians, not after it laid down a decent amount of MG fire, though. And we see the drones apparently still working, actually. Pretty impressive.
I see in the live chat, the one thing that everybody wants to know is, how was it in Los Angeles and California? Because like it's gotten a bad reputation in the news and stuff like that. We'll tell you more about it near the end. It was kind of a mixed bag, like overall, but we'll tell y'all more about it here shortly.
Yeah. Honestly, it's such an in-depth answer. I can't really give a quick one, because it would be summarizing it too much. It was very nuanced. The answer that we'd have to give is very, very nuanced. But anyways, moving on from that and into Jelani, we did get to see a destroyed Russian vehicle, and look at them. Oh my goodness. So many of them. Destroyed permanently. No hope of getting them back. No hope of recovering them. And we also get to see the Ukrainians hunting in Pokrovsk. Now, sadly, due to time reasons, I will not be able to show this clip. And also, United 24 doesn't really license the music they play in their videos anymore, and we don't want to get the stream unnecessarily copyrighted. So if you want to check that out, go click on the link for the map in the description below, and go click on this link near Pokrovsk. It is outlined with the soldier emblem on the marker, and you can go straight to that video and watch it there. We also got to see an M117 on the move. Check that thing out. Pretty cool. It's a little American light scout vehicle.
I like that, man. That looks nice. The Duckmobile.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it's neat. I personally like it. But moving on from that, down into the area of Novomayorsk, we also get to see that the Russians are apparently using a Vespa now. I'm very happy to see they are using Vespas. I wish them well, and I don't think the Ukrainians wish them otherwise. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on down towards Robotny, where we got to see some Russian positions getting hit from the 4th Separate Detachment of the Omega TSP. And Trap Remix hits. Oh, and they're hitting him. We see him getting slammed again and again.
This is Omega 4. They tell you to get some vitamins like Omega 4s. The Russians are getting their daily dose.
Man, it's like that fish oil, man. But the Russians aren't the fishy ones. They're getting fished.
Catfished.
Wait a minute. I was told if I showed up here, I would meet a nice 18-year-old Ukrainian lady. The drone. what? It's like, it just hits him instantly. But anyways, moving on from that and into our next clip is actually, funnily enough, up in Kyiv. This is time for us to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 939 of Tver. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Dear you.
Bitch!
And no English audio track. We may have been gone for 5 days, but I'm still not compromising on that. Speech!
Дорогі українці, українки, зараз в Сумах тривають рятувальні роботи після удару російської бомби. Влучання по пансіонату для літніх людей. За наявною зараз інформацією, в будівлі були майже 300 людей. Більше 200 пацієнтів та 60 осіб персоналу. Триває евакуація людей і перевіряється, чи є люди під завалами. Відомо вже про поранених, щонайменше одна людина загинула. Мої співчуття. Росія не могла не знати, що цей пансіонат для літніх людей не військова база, не військовий об'єкт. За одну сьогоднішню добу на цей час російські війська застосували вже майже 90 керованих авіабомб по наших містах, по українських позиціях. Обов'язково відповімо російській армії на цей терор. Відчутно відповімо. Сьогодні було багато роботи з військовими, зі спеціальними службами, доповідь головкома Сирського, доповідь служби зовнішньої розвідки, нарада з міністром оборони України та головою Служби безпеки України. Формуємо наповнення для детальних ґрунтовних перемовин з партнерами. Це стосується як Донеччини, так і інших напрямків. Зараз Силам оборони України вдалося зменшити штурмовий потенціал окупанта на Донеччині. Ситуація залишається вкрай складною. Важкі бої щоденно. Курахівський напрямок, Покровський. Але максимум робимо для стійкості наших бойових бригад. І окрема операція в Курській області. На цей напрямок вже вдалося відволікти близько 40 тисяч російських військових. Тривають наші активні дії. Є і поповнення обмінного фонду для нас, для України. І все це важливі речі, які впливають на загальну ситуацію у війні. Я дякую всім нашим бойовим бригадам, кожному солдату, сержанту, кожному командиру за хоробрість. Ще одне. Готуємось до важливих перемовин з нашими європейськими партнерами, з президенткою Єврокомісії Урсулою фон дер Ляєн. Зараз перед зимовим сезоном та й загалом цієї особливо вагомої осені у нас багато питань, які критично впливають на Україну, на життя наших людей. Зрозуміло, є енергетика. Зрозуміло, це нагальний пріоритет. Фронт – незмінний пріоритет. Це постачання і спільне виробництво зброї, політична взаємодія. Ми вже почали перемовини щодо вступу України в Євросоюз. І процес перемовин має бути таким активним, який дійсно зміцнює всю європейську систему. Жодних сумнівів у силі європейського проєкту бути не може. А також тематика російських активів. Те, що має бути спрямовано на захист життя в Україні від російської агресії. Є чітке рішення про 50 мільярдів для України за рахунок російських активів. І потрібен механізм реалізації, щоб вже найближчим часом було відчутно така підтримка для України є. Я дякую всім, хто допомагає Україні. Я дякую всім нашим людям. Слава Україні!
Ram Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 939 of the war. And with that, we move on into the second segment of this stream, which is an incredibly fun segment. We get to talk to every single one of y'all for the remainder of the show. And I got to say a huge thanks to everyone once again for coming to this channel tonight and getting your news from here. So far, 60,000 people have watched, and around 11,250 people have been here at the peak. That is absolutely crazy to me. And I got to give a huge thanks to all of y'all so much once again for choosing this channel to be your primary source of news and coming back with us on the great homecoming that is tonight. We are so happy to be in the position to tell y'all all of the news. We're honored. We really don't know how we were lucky enough to be thrust into this position, to be able to tell all of y'all the news every single night that we're on air, but I am honored and very happy to be here and very happy to do this. And I got to thank y'all massively so much once again for being here with us tonight. And it's time to talk to all of y'all. It's time to sit down and have a bit of a conversation street of a sort. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so it's now time for the final question segment of the night, and we're fresh out of polls as well. We do love the polls, but we are all out tonight. So with that, we're jumping straight into our Super Chat segment, and our first one is going to go to Alan Guinier, who puts in a $50 donation. And a huge shout out to you, Alan Guinier, I think it is. But thank you very much for the first ever Super Chat on our live stream. We appreciate that. And Alan says, Precision Sharpening of Bremerton, Washington sponsors the Enforcer, and glad you'll stop by Seattle, and you should come back and see more. And Alan, I have to tell you, Seattle's one of those places that we literally only had a couple hours in there, and that was one of the cities that I probably wanted to explore around the most, because it was very unusual. You had the water right over there, which we got to look at from the pier for a second, and you had like a whole city around it. It was one of the most unusual places I've ever been, after only seeing a couple of places like Washington, D.C., Dallas, Texas. We just saw Los Angeles. Seattle was probably the most interesting of the places we've been to, and it was the place we had the least amount of time in. So I would like to go back there one day. The unfortunate part is it's all the way across the country for us, which is pretty far away, but I would like to see it in depth. But thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say a huge thanks, a massive thanks, by the way, to Precision Sharpening of Bremerton, Washington. And let's go pull it up. Precision Sharpening. In Bremerton, Washington. And let's see if we can find it here. Precision Sharpening of Bremerton. It is, in fact, a sharpening service. It opens at 9 a.m. on Friday, tomorrow. Yes, it will be opening tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the morning, local time. If y'all have any sharpening services that are required, please make sure, if you are in the Seattle area, to take the ferry across and go to Precision Sharpening of Bremerton and get your sharpening needs taken care of today. That is Precision Sharpening of Bremerton in Bremerton, Washington. But a huge thanks.
That sounds like a proper sponsorship right there.
Yeah, it really does. But a massive thanks to you for the support. Your first Super Chat ever, Alan Guinier. And I'm so happy to say that we were able to go to Seattle. Now, I'm not going to give you all the normal politicians thing, because y'all know what politicians do, right? Every single one of them does this at their rallies. Like, no matter whose side, they show up and they're like, hello, everyone, to the beautiful city of Seattle. Yeah. I was really happy to get a corn dog today in Pike Place Market. Yeah. And it was really cool to see insert local known thing that's kind of just known in the local area, which was really cool. Yeah. And they do that. Like, we didn't get to see a lot of Seattle. Like, no joke. We really didn't get to see much of it. But I was really impressed with what we did get to see in downtown. It was very clean. It was very nice, and it had a really interesting kind of a vibe to it. It was a very industrial town, at least from my perspective of what I've seen in major towns before. This one was very industrial, and there was no bones about it. But I really, really liked that about the city, is that it had this very working kind of a city feel to it. It was a city at work. It wasn't just one sitting around that was kind of in the services industry. This was a heavy industry kind of a city. And I was really impressed to see that. They have this massive intermodal terminal down here that does petroleum. It does the containers coming on and off the container ships. They also have a massive intermodal yard for the railroads as well, where they take it from the harbor onto the trains, then ship them out elsewhere. And it was busy. I mean, it was incredibly busy. And that was probably one of the most interesting things about the city to me. And we took some pictures of it. We'll show you all those in a second. But it was so cool. And you know what? We'll talk about the Seattle part since we're on it and we're talking about Seattle right now. And you're actually from Seattle, funnily enough, Alan. Seattle was cool. And one thing that really blew me away is that, from what I could tell, now correct me if I'm wrong, because I saw this, there was a guy in downtown. He was wearing what looked to be something that was issued by the city, like some sort of a city sanitation uniform, but he had a leaf blower out and he was blowing the leaves off the sidewalk. And all of the streets had no leaves on them, and neither did the sidewalks. It was wildly clean, and we were blown away by that because no city we've been to here in Alabama has a working or funded Department of Sanitation that does sanitation at that level. Now, there's trash pickup, but there's nothing like that. So we were really shocked to see that. We were like, wow, they have like a working like city sanitation department. That is really cool. And also it was really pretty. Now I do have a million pictures in here. That's actually me right there. We'll get to that one in a minute. That was in LA. I took a good some pictures. Matthew won't be able to see them because the screen isn't shared like this. But this is the King Street station, which is kind of like a Union Station in Seattle. This was the inside of it. I believe the station was built in 1906. It was gorgeous. Most beautiful train station on the entire trip. It was the last one too. I also took a picture of the Seattle skyline right outside the station. Really pretty as well. It was really cool. Like, Seattle was incredibly neat. Also took a picture of the train when it was in the station at Seattle. This was the last picture I took before we walked off and we never saw the train again. That is an ALC 42 Charger. This is locomotive number 337, which was the one that led the locomotive, well, led the entire train, actually, all the way from LA to Seattle, one way. And then the next day, they actually turn the train around, and then they go all the way from Seattle back down to LA. But it was an incredibly cool trip on the train. This was the end of the trip in Seattle. So I didn't really take a lot of pictures of myself personally. Let me see if Matthew took any. Let's see. He took some pictures of the beach. We'll get to that in a little bit. Oh, there's so much to get to. There is literally so much to get to.
I took some pictures of us in some of those photos.
You did, but it was not in Seattle, I don't think.
I think I took a picture in the Amtrak sitting area, and also I can't remember what the other one was.
On the platform, at LA Union Station. We did not take any video in Seattle, like at all, and you know why. Like, you know why. But yeah, beyond that, it was really cool. It was really, really neat. Let me see if I can actually show y'all the platform. Oh, they actually have like a little panoramic thing on the platform. So this is what the platform looks like. It didn't really look like this. It actually looked better in real life. But our locomotive pulled up right at this platform, actually. It was this one right here that the camera's mounted on. You can see a baby bullet from the Cascades higher speed service. You can see some private rail cars over there. And you can also see that actually might be the Coast Starlight right there heading southbound to let's see, LA, or it could be the Empire Builder going all the way to Chicago. Not entirely sure which one. But still, it's a really cool train station. It was really pretty on the inside, and let me show y'all that. This is the inside. So we walked in this door over here where the mouse cursor is, and then we walked all the way through and over here to the left side where the baggage claim is. It was so cool. It was such a pretty station. We got to see it for a little bit, and I was just absolutely in love with the thing. I thought it was a wonderful station, beautiful one. And downtown Seattle was great too. Like, the whole thing was wonderful up here. I really love Seattle. I gotta say though, Oregon was rough. Like, I don't really know what's up with Oregon. Like, the southern part of Oregon was really beautiful, like Klamath Falls. Everything from Klamath Falls to Eugene, this area was really pretty and really nice. It was well kept up. But everything beyond Eugene, heading towards Portland, was interesting, to say the least. They have a really, like I will say this about Portland, to tell you all this. Portland's problem with homelessness is not being understated. It's not being overstated. It's actually being understated. The amount of homeless people that we saw in Portland was insane. Almost every single street had a large homeless camp of multiple homeless people on it. There was really nowhere you could actually walk in the city because all the sidewalks were being taken up by homeless people. I'm not exaggerating about that. That was the only city on the entire trip that was like that. It was bizarre. Also, Portland looked like hell. Like, the buildings were okay. The buildings were fairly new looking in downtown. But the city, like the actual city streets, weren't really kept up that well. It was really trashy. It was really rough. I mean, like, the city was actually rough. It was the only city that I saw that was like, this one is actually really, really bad off. Don't know what to do about that. You know, of course, that's kind of like a domestic political issue, so I can't really get into that. But it was a major issue. Like, it actually was pretty bad. I hate to say that.
Also, while we're on the topic, a lot of people have been asking tonight, how was Los Angeles? That's the main question. And how was Seattle? The truth is this: every place we went through, I'm just going to say it unfiltered the way it is, there were homeless pretty much everywhere. So there was not like a city that was like, oh, this one's like, honestly, my opinion, I think Portland was pretty much on par with the rest of them from what I saw. There seems to be a widespread homeless problem in pretty much everywhere we went to, which is unfortunate to see because some of these conditions are really bad in these places. But Los Angeles is honestly not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I had some pretty low expectations going into it because I'd seen all this stuff on the news about it. It was rough in parts. I think the worst spot was around Union Station. There was some open drug usage and stuff like that around the station. That was shocking to see that in real life. But it was really like the Hollywood area was a little bit rough around the tourist spot. But of course, you drove right into, I think it was like Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, and it turned really nice. But of course, that area is like outrageously expensive, like $10 million houses and stuff like that. But overall, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But there were some rough spots. But Portland was a little bit different. We didn't get to get off the train to see that, but it was different. Out of all the places, though, the cleanest was probably Seattle in the downtown area. But we didn't get to go outside the downtown to know if there was like a really sketchy part of Seattle, which I'm sure there probably is. But the downtown was really clean. But Los Angeles was sketchy mainly around the train station.
Yeah, it was pretty sketchy around the train station. I'll actually tell you what I saw in Los Angeles. Beverly Hills and Santa Monica were incredibly nice. Over the top nice. Like it was so nice it almost seemed like it was fake. It was that kind of nice. It was really well kept up. It was really nice. I mean, I cannot overstate that. It was incredibly nice. However, everything there is incredibly expensive. You want a hamburger is going to set you back $35. Here in Alabama, a hamburger is about $9. So you can kind of see the price disparity there is pretty big. So you're getting really nice stuff, but you also have to pay out the kazoo for normal daily items, which is kind of something. Now, let me see here. How do I say this? Hollywood was bad. Like, Hollywood was actually pretty bad. We were shocked by that because our hotel was actually in Hollywood. It was the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel right up here near the Chinese Theater. So this was the hotel right there. And here is the Hollywood Walk of Fame. You can actually see the stars here on Google Street View. It was horrendous. I mean, it was insane. Like, it felt really unsafe. The entire area was filthy. There was a lot of hecklers out there. Like, when I say hecklers, people trying to get you to buy gimmicks, and they would not leave you alone if you stopped walking. Like, you had to pretty much keep walking for them to leave you alone, and they all pretty much work in a gang, so if you, like, stop and one of them starts heckling you, the rest of them will follow, so you really couldn't stop and look at anything that much. It was.
I was shocked when I had to pull that Mickey Mouse impersonator off of you when he jumped you like on the sidewalk. I was like shocked when that happened.
Man, you're just kidding around about that crap. but it was really nasty up in Hollywood. Like, to be honest, not a big fan of Hollywood. And I was like, like, also the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel was not that costly. It was only like $200 a night, which for the area was actually really cheap because, like, if you go anywhere outside of Hollywood, it's like $600 a night, which is freaking mental for like a normal hotel room. So this was like the cheapest that we could find. We actually stayed back here near the pool, and that was another thing that kind of like shocked us a little bit about Hollywood is Hollywood's actually dangerous at night. Like, everyone there was like, do not go out at night. Just stay in the hotel at night because you could end up getting, like, jumped in the middle of the night. And don't go out in the morning and all that. We ended up going out in the morning. There was, like, no one out there. Like, the city was literally abandoned in the morning. The only people out there were the homeless people. So it looks like everyone took that word to heart and actually were staying in until, like, later on in the day around 10 o'clock or so. There wasn't really a lot of cops up in Hollywood either, so, it kind of felt a little lawless. Like, people would come through just, like, whipping wheelies on, like, four-wheelers and stuff down Hollywood Boulevard, and no one was there. Like, it was the weirdest, craziest thing. It was like the Wild West up in Hollywood.
That was weird. Like there was hardly, like you're saying, like hardly any police there. Like it really felt like there wasn't any policing going on whatsoever in Hollywood, and it was wild. We were literally sitting in the Wahlburger restaurant eating a burger, and we looked out the window, and there was like gangs of four-wheelers, dirt bikes, and none of them had tags on them. It was just people like doing wheelies and going as loud as they could down the middle of the road. No cops in sight or anything. And it was just wild. I've never seen anything like that anywhere. And that was like right in the middle of like Hollywood, down the main area, the main street, whatever it's called. Is it Hollywood Boulevard? Is that the street?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it was just that going on. Also, you had the Mickey Mouse impersonators, which apparently have a really bad rap, which I didn't know about because Andrew was telling me, don't look at the Mickey Mouse, don't say anything to him. I was like, okay, I won't look at him and say nothing then because apparently they're violent or something like that. But overall, though, like even though there was a bit of a homeless problem, we didn't run across any violent like folks or anything like that. Like people always talk about if you walk down the sidewalk, they're going to grab you or something or attack you. Nothing like that happened. I'm not sure if maybe they just didn't choose to target us because maybe we were males and they didn't want to go after us, or maybe they target people they think they can get away with doing something, but they didn't mess with us. So that was a good thing. And also going out in the morning was pretty good as well. But overall, I wouldn't say it was like the worst, but it wasn't fantastic when it comes to like the situation out there. But it was interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. Now it wasn't horrendous, but it was not. Hollywood is not a place I will return to. I'll put it that way. However, on the flip side, while I have crapped on Hollywood, and a lot of people are thinking, "Oh, LA sucks," LA doesn't suck at like entirely. Like any city, it has really bad places, it has really good places. Near LA Union Station was probably the worst I saw, actually, which I was very sad about because LA Union Station is really pretty to me. I actually took some pictures. I'll show them to y'all. Of the inside of the station because it was so bad outside that we were like, we can't even stay outside. I can't even walk far enough away from the station to take a picture. Might get stabbed by the people who were literally shooting up heroin right outside of the station. So we need to go in. But this was the inside of the station right here. I took two pictures of it. I took a picture of the main ticket hall over here, and then the main concourse, which is this one right here. So those are the two pictures that we had. Well, I had of the inside of the station. It was really a beautiful station. I thought it was really cool. It was built in a mission revival style, which you don't see a lot of stations made like this in this kind of scale. So it's really unique in that way architecturally. But the surrounding area around the station was really rough, which I don't understand because LA Union Station is a major transportation hub for the city. All Metrolink services terminate here at LA Union Station. So a lot of people use this train station every day. I believe it's about 200,000 people, 200,000 passengers transit through this station every day. And the outside area right out here was horrendous. Like no one was out there. Like no normal person was out there. It was only homeless people doing drugs, which was really whack. Did not think it was going to be like that, but we found out. But like, now moving over to the nice areas, because I've talked about all the bad areas, Beverly Hills was insanely nice, crazily nice. There were luxury cars, about every 10 cars you would see like a Bentley or a Ferrari or something like that. The houses were really nice. The streets were really well kept up. Really cool place. You ever go to LA and you want to see a cool part of LA, go to Beverly Hills. That was a pretty cool part. And everything in between Beverly Hills and Santa Monica down here at the beach was really nice. The beach, actually, Santa Monica Beach, is really nice as well. Matthew, I just realized I don't think we ever made it down to Venice Beach, did we?
No, we actually did make it down there. We drove all the way down and like turned back up and went back into Santa Monica.
Yeah, because we drove down this road right here and then went up. Yeah, you're right. We did go down here.
Oh, and also, by the way, Beverly Hills and Santa Monica have a surveillance network of like CCTV cameras that rivals like China's network. Like I didn't even know that. They have cameras and all kinds of drones everywhere. Like they are monitoring every single sidewalk, every street. Everywhere. It's crazy like how much they were watching. Like I have no idea how they monitor that many cameras, but it's like China. Like when you're walking around, there's no spot that's not watched by a camera based on what I saw.
Yeah, it was really weird. Like they had a lot of security, but Santa Monica and Beverly Hills were insanely nice. I mean, it was incredibly nice. It truly is living up to the hype in those areas. Incredibly nice. I would highly recommend y'all go to LA, check those places out. It was something that you will not regret seeing. Like the streets were clean, freshly paved. They had street lights. They had nice little parks. The buildings were really good. I mean, it was everything you would want in a city for the large part. Really good. But it was very expensive. Like to get even just a average apartment in this area, it was going to cost you like $10,000 a month or $5,000 a month or something like that. Something that Matthew and me would not be able to afford. So, largely out of the picture for us. So while really nice, it's completely untouchable really for us or really any average American citizen. It's just really out of everyone's price range. So then you end up being stuck elsewhere, like Central LA, which is south of Hollywood. And Central LA, well, let's see here. Where were we specifically? We were somewhere around.
Where's the tar pits?
I'm trying to find those tar pits, actually. Where in the world? I think this is, nope, that's, let's see here. Is this it? That's another cemetery. Where in the world are the tar pits, man? Like, I can't find them. Wait a minute, is this the tar pits? No. Where in the world are the tar pits, dude? Like, it wasn't that hard to find them before the show, and now that I'm here, it's hard to find them. There's the Grove, so it can't be that far from here. Tar pits? No? I can't find the tar pits, so I think we'll just have to give up on the tar pits for now. Tar pits were cool. They kept up the tar pits. Like, the tar pits were neat. Check out the tar pits. We didn't get to look at them. We just got to drive by them, and they were really cool to see. But yes, check that out. Really cool. But beyond that, LA is a bit of a mixed bag. Like, you can't say that it's all great and it's all terrible. I will say that a lot of people are giving LA an incredibly bad rap. They're like, the entire city is lost. It's like hell in there. It is not. Like, it's rough in some places, and it's really rough in some, but there's also some areas where it's insanely nice. So LA, to be honest with y'all, is really like any American city, but they have the extremes in both directions. They have the most wealthiest extremes, and they also have the poorest extremes. It's a sad deal, though, because it is bad. Like, in the areas where it's rough, there are literal homeless camps. And while I'm not going to weigh in on how to fix the issue, the homelessness issue has to be fixed in one way or another. It's a problem that a lot of people complained about. And a lot of people are going to be saying, oh, it's not that bad. But along the entire trip, I would talk to anyone who either lived in LA or was working outside of LA but did live in LA. And I would ask them, what do you think of LA? And no one living in LA, in the actual normal areas of LA outside of Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, where you could actually afford to live, no one said it was a nice town. Everyone said that the homeless problem is bad, the homeless are usually violent, and no one's really doing anything about it. And also, a lot of people said that it's gotten worse since the Wuhan whirlybird. That was specifically when things went downhill, and it's never really recovered. And a lot of people had a list of grievances. A lot of people said that things were getting a lot more expensive in LA, really by every single month. It was getting markedly more expensive and almost untenable to live there. The homeless situation was really bad. The crime situation was fairly bad in some parts of the city, but that's kind of different depending on where you are. Like Beverly Hills and Santa Monica aren't going to have that bad of crime, but other areas like Hollywood are going to have higher elements of crime. So there was a decent list of problems made out in that area. But beyond that,
also, something else I forgot to mention. Also, I'm not going to get political with this, so if you hear me say something, I'm not making a political statement. But just being from Alabama, it was different to go out to Los Angeles, and people would like openly be smoking marijuana. That was something that was interesting to me. I wasn't expecting that. I knew it was. Is it legal out there, by the way?
Yeah, it's like completely legal in California.
Okay. Yeah, it's totally legal out there. I'm not like an expert in that because I personally don't touch it, but it was interesting to come from a state where you don't see that at all to going out there where you literally smelled it. Like, I do recognize the smell of it, and I was like, I'm smelling that like over here on the sidewalk, over there across the street. It's like, this is wild. Like, people are just smoking it walking down the sidewalk out here, which is kind of fascinating. So if you've never been there, you'll see that as well if you go.
Now, one thing I will say, I would just say this. Weed reeks. Like, it does. Like, it smells horrendous. Like, even if you tried to get like a scented version of it, it was rough smelling. We've smelled weed before, and so and some people are going to go, where do you smell weed? People smoke weed in Alabama. You'll smell it here and there driving around, but it's not something that you smell a lot. And so when you go to a place like LA and you start smelling it like every other block, it's like, this is like horrendous. It smells like skunk ass on like every other street, and it was like, that actually I found annoying. Like, I'm totally fine with people, doing whatever they want, especially if it's legal in California. But, maybe doing like the confines of a house or something where it doesn't smell like skunk ass everywhere. That's like one thing that I would say is a bit of a complaint of mine. It just ends up being a bit of a public nuisance because if you didn't want to smell a fresh skunk out on the street, you're going to get it whether you wanted it or not. And that's something that I was like, I had a bit of a grievance with. It was getting annoying after a while. So let's see. Also, so it said LMAO. We smell weed before. I had to make sure to clarify that because some people will think that we probably hadn't since we're from Alabama. And, weed is pretty much completely illegal here in Alabama unless if it's CBD for medicinal reasons. But anyways, moving on from that, LA was a mixed bag. Honestly, though, I would return to it on a vacation. I thought it was actually pretty neat. And I thought it was cool. Like, I'm not going to say that this was a horrendous city. Do not go there. I actually didn't think it was that bad. Like, it was bad in some places, but you could actually get a lot of enjoyment and fun going to LA on a vacation. So, would I recommend this?
I personally wouldn't recommend going to Los Angeles again if it was me personally. It was interesting to see it like in the nice areas, but overall though, I would probably recommend going somewhere else in California, like maybe Santa Barbara or San Jose or something like that. That's maybe a little bit cleaner. I didn't get to see those areas, by the way. I just got to see them from the train just slightly, but it looked like it might have been cleaner, and also it was near the water, and it felt a little bit different. So me personally, I would say Los Angeles is neat to see it once, maybe twice, but I wouldn't choose to live there.
I would say I wouldn't choose to live there really because if you wanted to live anywhere nice, it's impossible because of the prices. But if you wanted to travel there on a trip and check the place out and go to the attractions that are in LA, like the LA metropolitan area, not exactly downtown LA, I'd highly recommend it. I thought it was pretty cool. I'll eventually probably try and go back there again and take a look around because it was neat. I mean, can't deny that. And so that is that. But there are really cool cities outside of that. One of the cooler ones that we saw, Burbank was actually not a bad place. Being honest with y'all, it actually was fairly nice. And let's see, Oxnard, from what I remember, wasn't really that bad of a place either. Once again, I got to remind everyone, we're seeing all of this from the train, so, we're seeing what we can from there. But it was still a really nice place in Oxnard. And this is when we started to travel along the coast. So at this point, we are literally just skirting along the coastline, which was gorgeous, by the way. Let me see if I can get you all some of the pictures that we took here. Because Matthew and me were taking pictures. And so, let's see here. Here are some of the pictures that Matthew took of the beach. So here's one of them. Here's the other. And here's that one. That one's actually like a small little house near the, well, actually it was a really big house near the beach. And then let's see.
That was out there near the Vandenberg Air Base, I think. It was out there in the dead zone where there's no cell phone reception or anything. And you also drive through and you see a launch site or something like that. That was right there in the dead zone. I don't even know whose house that is, if anyone even lives in it. But it was very, very picturesque looking. I had to take a picture of it. It looked so nice.
Yeah, it was actually really nice. And also, here's some of the pictures I took of the beaches. Right here as well. And also I took a picture of the SpaceX facility at Vandenberg that we were passing by. Really cool. And I thought, I will be honest with y'all, California was beautiful. Like the whole state of California, the natural beauty cannot be understated. It was gorgeous every single step of the way. There was also large expanses of farmland that just went on for hundreds of miles. It grew everything. They were growing vegetables. It wasn't the kind of stuff you would find in the South, like soybeans and cotton and corn. It was more like the kind of things you would get at the grocery store, like a carrot or apples or oranges, which was so cool to see because you never see that kind of stuff being grown in Alabama. So I was really blown away with that. That was incredibly neat. And I would have to say, if y'all ever wanted to go to California for anything, go to California for the natural beauty, because you cannot go anywhere in California where the natural beauty isn't there and it looks ugly. California is a gorgeous state as far as the natural beauty goes. So highly recommend the state for that reason. Go there and check out the natural beauty. You can't get enough of it. Literally the entire train trip was beautiful all the way through California. Not a bad part at all. And so let's see what else. You know what? We're going through the whole vacation at this point, so we might as well just go through the pictures and show you all everything. So one of the first planes that we got on, the one that actually took us from Dallas to LA, was actually an A321 that was painted in a heritage livery. This was an American Airlines flight, but it was the Allegheny I believe Air Livery, Allegheny merged with American Airlines back in 1974. So we got to fly on something that actually had a little bit of historical legacy to it, which was really cool. But the plane was modern. The paint job was old. Plane was modern, though. We then flew out of Dallas. You can actually see downtown Dallas and the haze out there. This was right outside of Dallas-Fort Worth taking off. We then flew over lower Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico on into California. So I took a couple of pictures of that and a dry lake bed and a couple of other things. This was one of the mountains actually flying into the approach to LAX in downtown LA. A huge mountain. It was so cool to see the mountains. Like, they're bigger than the Appalachians just around LA alone. We then landed in LA, so I took a picture of the LA Tower. Really cool. This was actually near the Uber pickup area. We then rode on an Uber on out to the hotel, which was the Hollywood Roosevelt, which you can see right here. The Hollywood Roosevelt is actually the oldest hotel that is still operating in this area of LA, and also one of the oldest hotels. Well, it is the oldest hotel still in continuous operation inside of Hollywood. The building was built in the 1920s. Folks like Marilyn Monroe and Shirley Temple stayed inside the hotel in its history. It ended up being refurbished back to its original condition in the late 80s. And it was really cool to see. The interior was neat. Honestly, reminded me a lot of The Shining. Like, I thought that I was about to get killed and the little kid was going to start saying red rum. But beyond that, still a really beautiful building throughout. Like, I thought it was really cool, really neat. Here's the front view of the hotel right here. You can kind of get an idea. Well, you can't even get an idea of what the street looked like here because this is only the hotel. But then I got to see something because we got on the tour buses, you know, like the big buses that go through town. And we ended up pulling over, and I saw something, y'all, that I just had to take a picture of because it was the funniest thing ever. A bus that is owned and operated by Hot Dogger Tours, Inc. Like, no joke, it's actually on the bus. Hot Dogger Tours. Like you can't escape it, damn it. Like, it was literally there.
Damn.
It was
Hot Dogger Tours. Man, he's out here trying to, like, hawk a hot dog on a bus.
Aw, man, I had to drive the bus. It was a deal I couldn't refuse. Aw, man. It was literally a Hot Dogger Tours. I could not believe this for my own eyes. Like, that was crazy. So, like, I saw that. I had to take a picture. It was the funniest thing ever, especially considering that we were literally taking a break from YouTube for a few days for this trip. And then we saw this. I was like, no freaking way. But so there was that. That was cool. And this was near Beverly Hills. So I took a picture of, I forgot what this is. It's one of the municipal buildings at Beverly Hills. You can actually see it's on Santa Monica Boulevard right there. It was a beautiful building, once again made, I think, in Mission Revival style. Really liked it. And so this was another picture of the lobby inside of the Hotel Roosevelt. Once again, really pretty building on the inside. Really interesting hotel with a great history. Not in a great area, though. Well, not in the best area. And then there was LA Union Station. And then at this point, this is when we got on the train. The train was Train 14, Coast Starlight, heading from Los Angeles to Seattle. We got tickets to ride all the way from LA to Seattle. That was actually the most expensive part of the trip, was riding that train. So then at this point, I was taking pictures myself of the ride on the train. So I was taking a lot of pictures out the window. So I actually took a picture. You can see the Simmons ALC-42 Charger up there, the lead locomotive 337, stopped at a red signal as a Metrolink local commuter passes by. That's actually the leading cab of the commuter right there. You can actually see it coming up closer in this little picture. Really cool to see the Metrolink system in action. It's a really big commuter system for LA. And then we moved on from that. This was right outside of Burbank, around this area. Very beautiful through there. Really neat place. And then these were the farm fields. We got to see the beaches, the Vandenberg Air Force Base area. This was San Luis Obispo. The train station at San Luis Obispo was really cool. It was built by Southern Pacific back in the late 1920s and the early 1930s. Incredibly cool as a building. And also, this is the sign at San Luis Obispo right there. You can actually see, like, right over there to the left, that's actually our sleeper right there. It was, let's see, 1432, I believe, was the car number on that consist. But we were up in one of the top sleepers. There's no sleepers on the bottom floor in this one. It was a transition sleeper. So the bottom was all restrooms and a handicap accessible bedroom. There was only one. And so
I've got a couple of pictures of the inside of the car and also the hallway as well under my pictures I sent.
Man, I'm about to be getting to that in a second, man. It's actually a little bit further down. And then I took a picture of the two lead locomotives. There's 337, and then behind it, I forgot what this one was, but it was one of the first ALC 42s delivered because it's actually in the Phase 6 livery instead of the Phase 7 livery that the lead locomotive is in, which is a cool fact of its own. And so moving on from that and down into the rest of the pictures that we had, we actually have a picture right here of the inside of the Superliner. This is the transition sleeper, so let me put out a disclaimer here. This is literally the only rolling stock or coach on this entire freaking train that had not been refurbished. So we were riding in a train a train car that had been used for like 20 something years and had not been refurbished the entire time. Every single car on the train had been redone and refitted months ago. Ours was not. Like, that was unfortunate. But anyways, this is the midway part of the car. You can actually go downstairs. There's 2 levels to these cars. And right here was a little coffee and a water stand. So you come out here and get some coffee, some fresh bean, or you get some water, which was really nice. I really enjoyed it. And then over here, you can actually see the sleeper car, the roomette, right there. This is one of the chairs. There's actually 2 chairs in each of these. They face each other. You actually have interesting enough, decent amount of leg room in these, and the chairs are wildly comfy. Like, you don't get, like, your back doesn't hurt and your butt doesn't hurt after sitting on these all day. They're very, very comfortable, really enjoyable to ride on. And then at night, the chairs actually fold out to be perfectly flat on the bottom, and this thing up here in the top left, it actually flips down to where there's 2 bunk beds. There's 1 bunk set in each room, and 2 people can sleep the night inside of one of these, so that's why it's called a roomette. It's not a full bedroom, but it's kind of like halfway there. Then in the next picture, this is actually a video where Matthew says San Luis Obispo. I don't know why he said that like that, because of San Luis Obispo, but he said it like that, and I'm back there just standing in the video awkwardly. So here's that clip.
We're in San Luis Obispo, California. Just jumped off the train for a quick stop here, and got to jump back on the sleeper in a minute, hopefully not miss the train. So we're not sure how long we can be off the train, but very cool.
And so that was the end of that clip. Y'all can kind of tell.
I didn't even get to hear it, thankfully.
Y'all didn't even really get to tell what the hell I was thinking right there. I was just standing back there doing like a little okay sign through the whole video. I felt really weird. But anyways, moving on from that, we then got more pictures of the beach. Also, Matthew had this picture at LA Union, this video. I'm not going to show it. What's the point of showing them? And we also had this picture of us in the first class lounge, because when you get a room on Amtrak, it's considered first class. So you get to go to like a little first class lounge and everything. Pretty nice. The guy in there was pretty cool too. Gave a really patriotic speech before we got on the train about checking your bags because people need to keep their jobs, and a working America is a good America. Really respected the speech. I thought it was very American and patriotic. Really appreciated it. So then we got on the train. Actually, no, that's the hotel, the Hollywood Roosevelt. So then we got on the train. Y'all saw the beach area. So after the beach area, we went through all the farmland. We got close to San Jose. It started to turn nighttime, so we all went to sleep. We woke up the next day. This is when Matthew found out he was sick. And that was not great at that point. But I woke up and we were going through the area of the Shasta Mountain, which is I think it's the largest mountain in California, right up here. This is Mount Shasta or Shasta Mountain, either way you want to call it. Huge, beautiful mountain. It's about 14,000 feet tall. It was snow-capped when we went through. Beautiful. Gorgeous mountain. Beautiful place, by the way, as well. And I tried to take some pictures. It was still like in the twilight hours, so they're not really great pictures, but this was a train tackling the climb out of the area of the Mount Shasta National Park region. So you can see a couple of those pictures right here. You can also see us passing through an area that a wildfire had ravaged. And then this is the area just north of Mount Shasta. It was like a marshy, mountainous area. It was so beautiful. I had to take pictures of this. So you can see some pictures here, different perspectives of that mountain area. And then we moved up to Klamath Falls, Oregon, where I then took more pictures of the locomotives. This is locomotive 305, the Phase 6 locomotive at the back of the head of the train. We can see 337 right there. We can actually see a crew change happening at Klamath. That's the new drivers, the driver in second hand hopping on board the locomotive to lead it on up. We can see the sign for Klamath Falls right there. And then I took a picture of the actual train. It had a baggage car, 3 sleepers. One of them was a transition sleeper, so the crew slept in it. And that was the one we were in. And then it had a dining car, an observation car, and 3 coach cars. I was told that coach car was the Thunderdome, so don't get in the coach car unless you're willing to brawl, because apparently...
Oh, boy.
We were actually told by the attendant on the train, I'm not going to give their name because I don't know if they'll get in trouble or something like that. They actually told us that brawls break out in coach class very often. Like, unless you want to get in a brawl, just don't go to coach, just ride first class on Amtrak. So that's an interesting note. They keep the classes segregated, by the way, in case you're wondering. Like, coach class people cannot come into your sleeper and start a brawl, like, in your sleeper. So that's not going to happen. So don't get freaked out.
Also, very interesting as well. When I actually woke up very early the morning after we woke up from the sleeper car. I'll be honest with you, the top bunk of that roomette is a little bit too small for someone my size. I think I'm about 6'1", and there really wasn't enough room up there to really fit properly. So it was really cramped. And also, if you're not used to it, the motion of the train is a little bit different. So if you're not used to that either, you really can't see out of a window from the top bunk either. So it's a little bit rough. So I actually woke up early and I was like, I got to get out of this thing right here and go to like the observation car or something to go like be able to look out of a window to like get my mind straight. So I wandered up to the observation car. I got in there and all the lights were out at first. And I opened the door, the lights turned on. And there was people sleeping all over the floor in the observation car. Like, they weren't sitting in the chairs looking out the windows. It was like, I think it was the coach passengers had come up from coach, and they were sleeping all over the floor and all over the chairs and stuff. But I was like, I'm not about to turn around and like go back to the like roomette. I got to get in here and see a window. So I just like found a spot, sat down, and started looking out the window. But it was wild though. It's like all the people that didn't get the rooms, they just went to the coach, and then they came up and slept in the observation car. Nobody apparently had a problem with that. And there's also like Jack Daniels and stuff all over the ground in the observation car. It was wild. But I think they cleared out like around the morning time or something. They all left there because it was empty afterward. After I came back later on, but. It was kind of fascinating, but the coach was the Thunderdome from what we heard, though. The attendant did say that, and also the conductors ran back there at one point to like do something with somebody back there causing a problem. So apparently, like coach is not the place to be on an Amtrak train. But the sleepers were okay. I personally wouldn't want to do it again, just because I don't like the overnight on a train thing. But I wouldn't mind riding on a train maybe during the day or something like to connect from city to city. But overnight, not my thing.
Me personally, I love the train. Like, I have a totally different story. I slept on the bottom bunk, so my experience was different. I actually was able to like spin around at night and stuff down there. And it was also cold. Like, you can actually control the temperature in each roomette individually, so you could actually adjust it to be warmer or colder to your preference. I kept it cold. It was really nice. I slept like a rock. I slept better in the train than I did in the hotel, and woke up the next day and was perfectly fine. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great, and it was also really relaxing and calm. At least in my personal experience. Matthews was a little bit different, but I love the train. Highly recommend it to anyone, but I would not recommend going coach. Like, only go like roomette or bedroom, but then that might end up getting expensive. But we decided to shell out the cash on this one because this was supposed to be the trip of trips. So it was the first trip we took in 4 years, so we decided to get a roomette instead of riding and suffering in coach and also getting like stabbed or beaten or something like that back there. But anyways, moving on from that, this is a picture of 305, the Phase 6 livery ALC 42. But then I got this really, really good picture, and I actually used this one on the community post, of the lead locomotive right here. I forgot where this was. I don't think it was Klamath Falls in Oregon. I think this was further on up. Maybe Eugene, actually. But this was really good. I was like, this is Wikipedia worthy right here. But this is the ALC. Really cool locomotives. I think they're better than the P42s, in my opinion, aesthetically. I really like them. And I also like the Phase 7 livery. I think that they really had like a huge upgrade here with the ALC 42 and the new liveries that they're introducing for the fleet. So really like that. Really cool. And then I took a picture of the Southern Pacific Machine Shop that it was abandoned. A lot of people are going to be like, why would you take a picture of that? Southern Pacific was actually the one who used to run these routes in this region. They used to run the Shasta Daylight and the the Pacific Daylight, which were the two routes that ended up getting merged to make the entire part of the Coast Starlight that travels through California. So that was actually really cool. Like, I was like, this is incredibly neat because this is a holdover from a bygone era that doesn't exist anymore. So I took a picture of that machine shop just for that reason. Then I saw a cabbage, which I had never seen before. If y'all are like, what is a cabbage? It is an F-40 that has had the engine gutted out of it. It's been turned into a half baggage car and then a half control cab. So you can actually drive the train from this side of the locomotive. Well, you can actually drive the train from this baggage car because it has a cab on it, but it doesn't have an engine in it like an actual locomotive. So that was actually really unique. I've never seen a lot of these, and I don't think there's a lot of them in the Amtrak fleet anymore. So I took a picture of that while it was passing us, which was super cool. Then I took a picture of this industrial area in near to Portland, Oregon. You can kind of get an idea of why I said Portland looked pretty rough. It looks like North Korea up there, no joke. And I was like, that's a interesting thing. Also, we took another picture of Portland as we were leaving. Once again, fairly industrial, but not in the way Seattle does it, where it comes off really nice. It comes off kind of bad. And then we got to see right there at the end of the trip on the train, and that was in King Street Station in Seattle. So overall, not a bad trip. Also, one more thing before we move on from all of the pictures that I uploaded here to show. I got this really cool video here, and this was us. This was me inside of the roomette on the Coast Starlight as we passed the Empire Builder, and so we could actually see inside of all of the nearby coaches. So you see people in their roomettes right there. But I'll skip forward to the really cool part at the end. And let's see here. This should be right here. And so we passed, and then I did like this panning thing so that we could see the front of the locomotive. It looked really cool in motion. But that's the end of that clip. But that's really all I have to show on the vacation. Beyond that, it was really neat. I would recommend taking the Coast Starlight. It was a fun trip. And also someone asked, was the food good on the train? The food was incredibly good compared to what you would expect. They actually cooked the food on the train too. So it's like actual warm cooked food. And another cool thing that I liked is that they'll pair you with random strangers at your table when you're eating, so you kind of have to talk to them. And Matthew isn't really a big fan of that, because he's not me, but I'm personally a big fan of that because I like to get to talk to people. And I talk to all kinds of people on the train. I got to talk to a veteran of the 75th Rangers. He was an incredibly cool guy. I also got to talk to a logger, I believe, from Kentucky, who was also on the train visiting family. Later on, I got to talk to a political activist from Santa Monica. They had a very interesting kind of an idea. They were actually wanting to get rid of cars because they wanted kids to be safer in the street, and they wanted people to take the train more. I was like, that's an interesting point. I don't think anyone, like me personally, I'd like just throwing this out there. I think this is a general point. I don't think anyone's really going to be on board with that idea, but that was still a pretty interesting kind of like an objective to have. I was like, that's really interesting that they're really like, they're traveling on the train to actually go to a conference to try and push this. I was like, that's actually really interesting. And then finally, the last person that we ended up running into, I ended up running into on the train, was this really, really cool dude. He was actually riding the train from Portland to Seattle only, and he was a musician. He was a guitarist and singer that was going to Seattle to do a show. And so that was incredibly cool. Like meeting the passengers on the train, like it's actually true. You don't know who you'll meet on the train. It was incredibly neat to meet all those people. And so I've got to say, I've really enjoyed the train. Food was great. Passengers were fun. I thought it was just a wonderful experience all the way around. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I would just have to say I really enjoy the train. I love trains. This trip only further reinforced that idea that the trains are good and they are fun, because it was wonderful overall. I just really liked it. And so with that, I hope that does kind of address everything I can about the vacation incredibly well, and a huge thanks to everyone once again for sitting around and listening to that, because I hope that we covered all of the bases on the trip and how it went, because it was incredibly fun and I really, really loved it. And so with that, Melanie said, that does not look like North Korea. To me, it was close. It was actually close to like the industrial areas, but maybe not. Maybe that was a little bit of an exaggeration, but still, with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, so real quick, we do have a poll running. It says, would you ride Amtrak overnight or only during the day? So 78% said overnight in a sleeper, and 22% said only during the daytime. And I gotta tell y'all this, if you're willing to sleep in a sleeper car, then good on you. If you have maybe the bedroom, it might be better, but the roomette for 2 people, if you're on the top bunk, then God bless you, because it's gonna be a little bit rough, especially if you're over like 5'9" or something like that. It's gonna be very tight. And also the bathrooms are extremely small on the train. Not that you're expecting like a massive bathroom or anything, but I mean, they're like so small you can barely turn around in them. And you have to like wash your hands and all that good stuff in the bathroom in that little small space. And also walking on the train is a little bit interesting. And also the motion of the thing was also another deal. I'll be honest with you, I don't think I'm a train person, just for various reasons. Not that it's like terrible, but I just don't prefer it. I prefer to get on the flight, get to wherever I'm going, then jump off and like maybe rent a car or something and look at it. It was cool getting to see the scenery that you couldn't see from the car on the Amtrak going down the coast. But overall, for me, I think the cons outweighed the pros, and I probably wouldn't do it again. But it's totally up to like each person. But I would probably only do it during the daytime if I had to repeat it. But that's just me.
And I'm of course completely opposite. The pros outweigh the cons. Food was good. Meeting folks on the train, really cool. The train was nice. I like the sleepers. I like sleeping on the train. One thing though that they don't tell you is that you end up getting the after effects of the train for a long time. Like even sitting here right now, you feel like this random like bobbing motion, like you're kind of like swaying a little bit from side to side because you're on this train like nonstop for 36 hours almost, and it's so kind of like gradually, like really slowly, kind of like bobbing from left to right and accelerating and decelerating at different points. And you really actually feel that for a while after you get off the train. Like I'm still feeling that a little bit right now, and I feel like I'm on a moving train while running the show. But beyond that, it was still incredibly cool. Loved it. Also, the people on the train were pretty cool too. Like we had a great attendant. Guy was one of the coolest guys. He was one of the folks from LA, and he told us a lot. Very very neat people that work on the train. Very neat people on the train. Are neat people in Coach? I don't know. I was told really bad things about Coach. The 2 people, the veteran from the 75th Rangers and also the logger from Kentucky, they were actually both from Coach. They were really cool people. But I've also was told by that attendant who's worked with Amtrak for 6 or 7 years that there's a lot of brawls that happen in Coach, and if you want a good experience in Amtrak, really don't ride Coach because that's all you'll really get. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least in my opinion and kind of on my trip and my experience. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here is going to go to William P., who puts in a $20 donation.
Hey!
Excuse me, goodness. And thank you very much, William, for that $20 support. He said, welcome back, and did you bring us all t-shirts and take a question from the chat?
Hey, I kind of did, actually, because Seattle was so cool and nice. Like, we didn't get to stay there long, but it was cool and nice enough that I actually ended up getting a Seattle t-shirt to wear around the house. So I kind of did, kind of. But still, I thank you so much once again for support, William P. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat, and thank you so much for welcoming us back, because I'm so happy to be back here and running this stream. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And this question is going to go to Miss Disa, who says, any information on the Russians mining the dams in the Belgorod region?
We have not really heard much about that at the moment, Miss Disa. Actually, I haven't heard a lot of news because on the trip, Matthew was actually keeping a tab of things on Twitter a good bit. I was largely just soaking in life on the trip and really trying to experience the west of the United States as much as I can. So if that did happen, I haven't been able to brush up on that to hear about it yet, so I'd largely have to declare ignorance on that one at the moment. But Matthew, do you know anything that would feed into that? Do you have any information about that?
So generally, I don't know about that really in detail. I think I heard about it, but I don't really know much about it. I really just kept up with like the really large stories that were happening, like the pager story and stuff like that. I only had maybe like 20 minutes a day that I jumped on Twitter just to check the news out, so I really don't know.
All right, and so I hate to say that it looks like neither of us really know exactly the details on that story at the moment, but I still thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. So a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to Hidden Chin, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Hidden Chin, for that support. They said, nice to have you back, boys, and take one from the chat.
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Hidden Chin. And also, it is great to be back. I'm so happy to be back here. I cannot tell y'all enough how happy I am. It's been really fun to be back on the show. I can't say it enough. I just never really realize how much you love doing something until you go on a vacation and you come back and it's like, man, I really do love doing this. It's the funnest thing ever. It's fun for y'all, it's fun for me, and while this is technically our job and it's what we do for work, I don't view it that way. I think this is the funnest thing to ever do. I love it. And so I got to thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, I thank you so much once again for support, and we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Merry Christmas. The shitter is full. Thank you very much for that $20 support. And I know that is their first ever super chat. I've never heard of them in the live chat. So thank you very much for that support. And he said, LSA.
And LSA, Merry Christmas, shitters full, and thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. What a name. What a name, man. That's actually a pretty impressive one, I will admit, and I appreciate you for being a part of the LSA and supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running, because I've never seen a username like that on YouTube. I didn't even...
Oh, it's Jenna, last name Tolls.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. But still... Thank you so much for the support, Jenna. Last name Tolls. That one was a pretty good one right there. I was like, what in the world? But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, before we get on to the next one, Matthew, did we get the live chat for Hidden Chin?
No, I don't think we did.
All right, so let's grab that really quickly before we move on to the next one.
So this live chat question here is going to go to Evanescent Wave, who said, any chance that the Iranian missiles were at the Torpets ammo depot?
We would not know. They could be anywhere in the country. There's a chance that they were at the Torpets ammo depot, but we would not be able to know that entirely for certain, considering that all the ammo that was there has been blown up now, and so you really don't have proof of what was in there unless we were able to find scattered debris and Russian conscripts started to take pictures of it and upload it. So we won't know unless we get that kind of info. So it's a possibility, but we can't say it for certain. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a super chat from Panama Floyd, longtime channel legend. And thank you very much, Panama, for that $20 support as well.
Hey!
He said, I'm hearing elsewhere that the reason that the Torpets blew up like that was because the imported missiles were parked on the ground instead of shoved into the bunkers. And what have y'all heard?
That's a very good question. The reason why the Torpets ammo depot blew up is because Russian ammunition storage practices are very poor. Now, you could have put it outside of the buildings. You could have put them inside the buildings. The buildings on a Russian ammunition facility, largely, and this is what most of the facility is made up of, is the older Soviet style of ammunition storage, which you can see right here, instead of the hardened shelter storage that you can see down here, which they actually started to implement a little while ago, but it's not on a full scale. The reason why the facility blew up the way it did, the first hit actually hit one of the older Soviet storage facilities up here. These only mean to protect the weaponry, the missiles and such, and artillery shells and all kinds of explosives from being rained on. That's really the only thing these buildings stop or protect the shells from. It doesn't really protect them from being attacked and hit by some kind of a longer range missile or any kind of explosive. That will end up causing a chain reaction, much like the one we actually saw once the facility did end up getting hit and the first round started to blow up. So the reason why the facility blew up is because it was a pretty lucky hit well, not really a lucky hit. It was more so a well-calculated hit at the start on the northern side of the facility where they knew a chain reaction would begin because of a very poor storage practice. So we don't really know if it's because they just sat them outside in the rain. We would generally understand that it was just because these buildings are not rated to survive or mitigate the chance of an explosion happening here. They're really just meant to stop them from getting rained on and getting ruined in that way over time. But with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can from the information I'd know. And then even still, we got to see that a decent amount of the hardened shelters also ended up getting destroyed as well, as they ended up blowing up in their own explosions. And we think that that may have actually caused a chain reaction down here as well. And most of these ended up getting blown up as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to Tommy Two Tokes. Excuse me. Goodness gracious. I'm trying to hang in there. My lungs are not holding out. But Tommy put in a $20 support. And excuse me, Tommy, for the squeak. But he said, welcome back, gentlemen. LSA. And take a live chat question. And LSA.
And LSA, my boy. And thank you so much for the support. Tommy Two Tokes. And I'll be honest with you, Matthew. My voice, can you tell that my voice is sounding a little different tonight?
Not really. Mine, I'm really holding mine in right now. I feel like it's a balloon that's aired up, and the balloon is close to popping. Whatever this is that I've got going on right now is really hitting my lungs. I don't know if it's the whirlybird. I hate to say the whirlybird because it always seems like that, but something's got me coughing. I'm having to mute every other second to prevent y'all from hearing it.
Well, I'll tell you something, Matthew. I'm starting to have a harder time talking. I'm trying to make sure I sound normal tonight, but my voice is feeling strained, and I think I may have also gotten the illness. Hopefully, I haven't, because that will really start to throw a cramp into running the show, because talking for 3 hours really does wear the voice and the vocal cords down. But with that, I hope that does address that well. But beyond that, I'm so happy to be back. I'm excited to be back and at it. And we will make sure to take a live chat question in your honor. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the live chat question this time goes to Gabe, who says, do you think that since we heard about this ammunition depot explosion and about what's going on with the recent Middle East situation, could this be a pivotal point in more intense events?
It could be a pivotal point, but it also could not be. Situations in the Middle East like this have happened before, at least at this kind of intensity, and it's never really resulted in anything going out of hand or really escalating in that area. Although it would look like it would, and it reasonably would, it just doesn't, because the Middle East is a very controlled it's a very controlled, uncontrolled area, to put it lightly. However, in Russia, with this kind of an ammunition depot explosion, these things usually do not escalate further. It's kind of swept under the rug because the Russians don't want to admit the embarrassment of losing a major facility like this to a simple drone attack that's largely cheap and easy for the Ukrainians to launch. So they'll probably massively underplay this, and this won't result in any heavier escalation. And so that would be my input. It could be the catalyst for greater escalation or heavier actions, but it could also turn into nothing, which there's also a pretty good chance of that as well. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one is going to go to Jack Ray, who puts in a $20 donation as well. Thank you very much, Jack, for that support. And he said, LSA.
And LSA, baby! And thank you so much for the support, Jack Ray, and helping this channel to keep on running. Thank you for being here when we come back, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and help us to keep this running. And so, massive thanks to you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And we also have another $20 super chat, this time from Trister1, who's another channel legend. And thank you very much, Trister, for that support. And he said, I understand, and that the Torah, let's see here. He said, I understand that Torah Pets was one of a dozen or so very large reinforced ammo centers, and any ideas where the others are?
Great question. They are largely scattered throughout the area of Western Russia, kind of in a crescent shape from Smolensk, Tver, Moscow, Ryazan, and down to Tambov. There are a few in Tula and Kaluga, but it's generally this giant crescent-shaped area where most of those massive hardened shelters are that house their ammunition. So that's largely what I know at the moment. That's where almost all of them are. I think there's about one or two more elsewhere in the country, but the majority of them are in that area, considering that the Soviet Union, at the time they built them, was planning on trying to fight a Western adversary in Europe and not in Asia. So they're mostly in that area from what I know. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support, Trister1, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that that answers that question fairly well. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
And this one's going to go to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who's a longtime channel legend as well, who puts in a $15 donation. And thank you very much, AMX10, for that support. They said that Britain doesn't have a say over what Ukraine can do with British weapons at the very highest level of risk assessment and decision, and there is likely a team who always makes the highest level decisions.
And I thank you for the support, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. And that may be true, but usually the British do decide. They were largely the ones to first decide that they should be the ones to provide weapons to Ukraine at all, and they did that really without U.S. approval, and then the United States followed suit about a month later. I would largely disagree with that because Britain can do what it wants, and it has shown that before. Whether people agree with it or disagree with it, they have been able to do some of their independent actions prior. So I would say maybe not entirely true, but there is a decent amount of diplomatic leverage in sway that other countries have, like America, that would make that seem like it is the case. But with that, I hope that does address that well. I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $20 super chat from Luke Bowers. He put in actually, that was a 20-pound donation right there. Very heavy donation. Thank you very much, Luke, for that support. He said, some welcome home wages for the enforcers. Hey, thank you very much. He said, do you think, or do you both think, that Putin is still capable of mounting the promised response after losing such a critical munitions bunker? And me personally, I would say no. There's really nothing he can really do outside of what he's currently doing because, you know, like he's been threatening, all he can do is whip out the nukes. And that would be the most extreme thing that he could possibly do and probably the most unlikely thing that he's going to do. So there's really nothing much else he can do. He's throwing all the men at the meat grinder like usual. They're at max capacity on the meat grinder. So I would say probably nothing. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, in my opinion, honestly, he could. I'd have to be in the opposite camp from Matthew. They still have plenty of ammunition, and the remaining 11 facilities that they have, they could launch the kind of response that they would want to. It's just that they wouldn't be able to sustain that for as long as they originally would have with that ammunition facility intact. They did lose 7% of their ammunition. They didn't lose all of it, though, in that explosion. And that does mean that at least in the short term, they can do things like that. It's just that it may cost them dearly in the long run. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. I thank you once again for support, Luke Bowers, all the way from the UK, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, really quickly, everyone, I actually am going to have to start annotating this live chat segment because, to be entirely honest with y'all, I'm actually not really feeling that hot at the moment. I'm actually starting to go a little downhill, and also the Dramamine I took earlier today has never really worn off, and so the coffee only got me half awake, and now I feel like I'm almost completely comatose at the moment. So I'm going to be speeding this up a little bit. I'm sorry about that, but we will make sure to answer everyone's super chats and some live chats as well. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our next one here is going to go to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a $15 donation, and thank you very much, Margaret, as well for that support. Hey! And also, real quick, I wanted to go back up and just double check here. There was no comment attached, but there was a super sticker of the Doge holding our heart. And thank you very much, Margaret, for that support. Hey! And also, Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, Margaret, and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who helped to make this thing possible, and we are massively appreciative of that. And so thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Airbus Pilot, who puts in a $12 donation combined across several super chats. And I had to annotate them a bit because some of them were graphic. We can't repeat that on the air. But I said simply, they like to party, and you gotta tell them no.
Oh,
and make sure you tell them no, because you don't want to go to party with some of these people out here. It's a little sketcy. But thank you very much, Airbus Pilot. And Enforcer, what say you?
Listen, folks, you don't want to party with Diddy. You don't want to party with...
Oh, Diddy.
He ain't partying no more because they revoked his bail. Oh, but beyond that, I gotta say thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also pretty funny stuff right there, Airbus Pilot. So thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Sandblaster, who puts in a 10 and says, for the free tattoos from Marmots Fund.
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Sandblasted, helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I would say free tattoos for Marmots Fund. That is an interesting one. I personally don't have any tattoos. I don't think I'm gonna get any either. Because I'd hate to get one and then not really like what I got as a tattoo later, because then you're kind of stuck with it largely. And so I gotta thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to keep this thing running, and that is an interesting fun. And so thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Kid Rock 966, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Kid Rock. It's good to see you once again.
Hey!
He said, welcome back, Enforcers. Good to see y'all. And LSA.
And LSA, baby, and it's good to be back. I'd be no other place than here. And so, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 super chat from David Long. He said, the explosion at the ammo dump was equal to 30,000 of TNT, or roughly or double the Hiroshima bomb, and the facility was supposed to be nuke-proofed. Well, so much for that. LOL. He said, take one for the chat, and WB.
And thank you so much for the support, David Long, and sharing that. That's incredibly interesting information right there. I actually had not gotten that number before. I was told it was one of the larger non-nuclear explosions, but not bigger than a nuclear explosion or an atomic explosion like that. That's actually very interesting. I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. Thank you for the welcome back. And we will make sure to take one from the chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
So the one from the chat this time is going to go to, let's see here. Melanie1640, who said, are y'all going to touch on those pagers and those radios in the Middle East that went kaboom?
And we did. We actually touched on that a little bit earlier in the stream, because I get the balls, but Hezbollah doesn't. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to McDeath, who put in a $10 donation, and also Robert Johnson, who put in a 5 as well. Thank you very much to McDeath and Robert for that support. And we also have a 10 from Scott Kemp. And Scott says, welcome back, and let's win this now. And seriously, I'm not joking. And when do you think it may be? And still on 3.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Scott. And I'd agree with you. Hopefully, they will be able to win soon. We don't know when that actually will be, because it looks like it will be at least longer or more than a year from now at this point. But still, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that kind of gives a little bit of a timetable. Once again, not trying to crystal ball here, but at least longer than another year from now. And so, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Love Is Everything, who puts in a 5 and says, love to the LSA, and ask a question from the chat.
Hey! And love to the Lee Spring Army. Love is everything. And thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to take a question from the live chat. So what do we got?
And this one is going to go to, let's see here, Robert Rhodes, who says, do we have an estimate or a guesstimate on the casualties from the strike in Russia?
Let's see. We guess maybe 200 injured and killed at this point, because that's how many were permanently stationed there. But beyond that, there may be others that were surged into the area to help out with logistical demand that we wouldn't know about at the moment. But we're guessing at least around 200 or more than 200. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Laser314, who puts in a 5 and says, if you listen carefully, you can still hear the drone operators celebrating even now.
You bet, believe. Yeah. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And that's true. You probably can hear them celebrating about right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to CK Bold, a channel legend, who puts in a $5 donation, the usual, and says take a live chat question. And we shall, CK Bold. Thank you very much once again for that support. And this one goes to M. McKernan, who says, I heard that an Iranian diplomat was injured by a pager. And are there any pagers that blew that were not in Lebanon?
We don't know. I did hear that there were others, but I didn't hear a lot of details about them, so I can't really get a lot into it. I would assume yes, but once again, we're not entirely sure on that here on this channel, at least, because, we're trying to gather together all the information we have after not really being here for about 5 days. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you once again for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Duncan VR, a channel legend as well, who puts in an $11 donation.
Hey!
And thank you very much, Duncan, for that support. And of course, he has animal noises. So let me get a big breath to go through this. Excuse me. And he says, Baba Meow. Secretary Blinky says you want a free tour with Hot Dog Tours. Baba, the bus driven by the fly. Don't want to let him drive the bus. Oh, man, I don't let him drive it. He gets no respect. Meowsy, Wolf Quack, grab a hot dog.
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, VR. It would not be an LSA night without the animal noises. And I gotta thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. Because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so a big thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Alcacer, who puts in a 5 and says, I thought of a new type of measurement. Big, long-lasting yield ammunition tremor, aka the Bliat scale. And welcome back in LSA.
And LSA, baby! And thank you so much for the welcome back, Alcacer. And that is an interesting idea, the big, long-lasting explosion. And I would have to say that that one would count as a 1 Bliat on the scale. That's going to be 1 standard Bliat, and anything bigger than that will be bigger than 1 standard Bliat. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Uncovered Cube, who puts in a 5 and says, welcome back. And we got to see the F-35 demo team on our mini vacation, and it was awesome.
Hey, and that's really cool, actually. The F-35 demo team. I'd like to see him. I've never seen him before myself. But I got to say, thank you so much once again for support, and thank you for the welcome back. I hope you have fun watching that F-35 demo team, because I know I sure would have. And so with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Jesus. Excuse me, goodness gracious. This one goes to Jesus Sepulveda, who puts in a $5 donation. And Jesus, I think I butchered your last name, so let me try it again. He said Sepulveda. And I think I got it right that time. But thank you, Jesus, for that $5 support. And we also have a 4 from Jason Curling, as well as a 3 from Al P once again, a 3 from Naruto, as well as a 2 from Mama Mentality, and a 2 from Al P once again, and also a 2 from Mark Andre Brunette. And huge shout out to all of you, Jesus, Al, Naruto, Mamba, and also Mark for that support. We appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a big shout out to Jesus, Jason, Alp, Naruto, Mamba Mentality, and Mark Andre Brunette for y'all support and helping this channel to keep on running. If it was not for all of y'all, while y'all didn't leave comments, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we owe y'all massively for helping us to continue to be able to do this as a job and to continue to be able to keep this thing running 6 days a week. And so a massive thanks to y'all once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Nanobread, who puts in a 5 and says, save Bayraktar.
Bayraktar. And I got to say, thank you so much once again for supporting Nanobread. And I saw a lot of people saying, you got to save Bayraktar. I think if we're going to save it, which I'm fine with saving it, we'll just have to move it forward in the segment, like in the intro. And so it'll probably end up eating the midway mark. Instead of just disappearing completely, because we can save Bayraktar. It is a staple, but I do want to make sure to include this new orchestration because, I mean, y'all, it's going to cost me like $4,000. Like, this thing's already set me back a pretty good bit. It's got to be in the intro at this point because that was kind of the whole point. Because a lot of people really liked it back when I did it before, but then we got copyrighted, and I was like, we need our own stuff, and so that's why I did it. So we will see, but it still has to go in, and largely towards the end, because that's the biggest open segment we have. But with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Herp Derp NV, who puts in a 5. It says, it sounds like you guys got an in real life hood review of Portland, and probably a good thing that Matt quit the Chipotle before being stuck on a train with the tiny bathrooms. Oh, goodness gracious, I'm telling you. Regardless of where your situation is, Chipotle is probably a good thing to stop. in my opinion, just from my personal experience. But let's see, in real life hood review, we got a short little hood review by the train station. I'm not sure if there's a redeeming quality to Portland or not, but it didn't look like Portland was that great. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, you know what's interesting? I actually just dropped down on the street where I saw the most homeless people, which is right here. And there's the tracks actually over across that chain link fence that go right into Union Station, right down there. So this is interesting because in 2019, there is one homeless guy right there. That's it. One homeless guy, and there's none elsewhere from what I can tell. So to tell you what I saw when we came in, this entire road right here from that fire hydrant down to this fire hydrant was literally a giant homeless encampment, like tents back to back to back with all their entrances facing out into the street. There was some like very crazy looking tweaker woman over there at the old signal box or really the signal station right here that was like brushing her teeth and stuff on the stairs and like sucked one of her toes like right in clear view of the window, like she was legitimately crazy or something. And then there was a load of them over here. I mean, it was like the entire place was occupied by homeless people, and you don't see that in 2019, and that really leads me to believe that this got worse after the whole Wuhan whirlybird thing happened, because the street view looked pretty good right there. Like we'll move over here really quickly and take a look. Any homeless? Well, that might or might not be homeless. This guy with a shopping cart probably is homeless. Well, there's a homeless camp right there. But this still does not look as bad. It does not look as bad at all. Well, there's some more that we saw. Like, it was actually about 4 times as bad as this. And that was what really shocked me about Portland. Also, let me see if I can show you all this here. Let me see. You know, Portland actually looks a lot better here in 2019 when this street view was made than it did when we went through. Also, it was overcast, which really kind of made it look gloomy, and so it looked really, really bad at that point. So maybe it was, I'll be honest with you, because I'm not one to, you know, judge a place and then permanently judge it forever the same way. It may have been really nice back in 2019, but it really went downhill since then, because when I went through, it was rough. Like, it was actually pretty rough. I hadn't seen much like it. Now there are nice places, I'm sure, in Portland. It's just that we didn't see them as we were riding through on the train, and maybe that area in downtown doesn't look that good. But yeah, you know, it was questionable. It was questionable. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And I thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2. And thank you very much, Sarge, for that support. He said, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
And that is an order from none other than LSA Sergeant Figment. So you better hit that like button, because that is an order. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the last super chat of this segment. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Rose Blue, who puts in a 2 and says, bye-bye, North Korean missiles.
And I suppose so, if they were there. And that's really the question. Were they there? We don't know. And so we will see one day, sometime here in the future. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us to get into the live chats and the Morse code decoders. Due to not really feeling hot tonight. I hate to say that, because it's literally the first night that we're back, and I hate to tell y'all that I'm not feeling that hot, but I felt okay this morning. Now I'm feeling worse, so I'm going to let Matthew get to the Morse code decoders, 3 live chats, and then we're going to be rounding out tonight's stream. So what do we got, Matthew?
So tonight, we had the whole roster of Morse code decoders. We had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J., Paul Schultz, David Millsaps, Royal Fluffiness, and Arabelle Garbo. They said, welcome back, gents, and this evening's Morse code message is as follows. Long live the LSA. The LSA will never die, and may our republic prosper.
And that is the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message. I gotta congratulate y'all for getting that correct. That's actually wildly impressive that y'all got that correct on the 939th day of the war and have not missed a single day of the war so far. And so a big shout out to all of y'all once again. Really impressive stuff. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Geek Hippie, who says, how much explosives does one of those drones carry?
Well, it depends on which one we're talking about. Some of them carry an RPG-7 warhead. Some of those drones, though, the longer range ones, I believe they only carry like a 20-pound warhead or something like that. It's not a really big one, but it is big enough when hitting a target directly. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well, at least off of my limited knowledge of that warhead in that drone. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Davis, who says, how long do you think it'll take to reroute ammo to replace what was destroyed?
It probably will take months, maybe weeks if they're working really quickly, but probably months to fully smooth out that whole supply line and the issues they're going to be getting from what just happened. So that would be my guess, probably months. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person that threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Fighting Finn, who says, is it possible that the drone used on the ammo barracks could be the new Ukrainian-made jet drone?
I believe that's entirely possible. That's actually what I'm largely placing my bet on, is that it was a jet-powered Ukrainian drone that ended up hitting the facility and destroying it. So that would be largely my opinion. I would have largely agree with that. And so with that, I hope I answered that incredibly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank everyone so much once again for being here with us tonight and enjoying the stream. So far, over the length of it, 71,000 people have been here, and over the length of this entire 3.5-hour stream, 11,250 people were here tonight, an absolutely massive number of people. And I got to thank all of y'all once again for being here with us tonight and listening to this news. I don't know why y'all choose this channel. I don't know why y'all waited around and stayed for us to come back. That was truly amazing and really, actually incredibly nice. I did not expect that because YouTube is usually a very brutal world, even for people who really enjoy a channel. Usually when people take a break like that, folks go elsewhere, and y'all stayed. I'm truly blown away by that, and it once again shows that the LSA is as nice a community as it could ever be. More nicer than I thought it was, and I thought it was the nicest community already. I got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching tonight. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope that y'all like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. We run this thing 6 days a week. Now we will be, once again, every single day of the week except for Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can always count on us to be here covering the news of the war in Ukraine and news from wars and other situations around the world pretty much 24/7. And so a big thanks to y'all once again. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, good night, folks. It's good to see you all once again and being back after our year-long trip across the sea. Not really, just over in California. But anyways, we'll see you all tomorrow night on our next nightly War News stream at 10 p.m. Eastern, of course. And also, maybe midday tomorrow for a short war summary if there is enough news to cover. But with that, it's great to be back once again. And Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava. Be sure to join us tomorrow and get some rest and good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.